Hello, this is the fourth part of Shed No Grace on Me by Neon Zangetsu. Link will be in the description. All author's notes have been removed between chapters. Also, any explicit NSFW scene will be removed. This part will cover chapter 22 to 28. You're reaching the end of your journey, Naruto. Many paths lay before you. Which ending shall you choose? Oh, a most curious answer indeed. Will you create your own? What will you sacrifice to achieve that ending? Tilda an angry dragon. The path awaits, something had changed. Rani noticed it come morning, or what passed for it down here in the depths of Notecron. Indeed, how could she not? She was not a witch for nothing, and soon noticed that something was amiss. Melina had been sullen and silent from the moment they'd set foot in this place. Downright cranky even. Aggressive? Most certainly. Yet now, that foul mood was nowhere to be seen as they broke camp. Even in this tiny, limited doll form, Rani wasn't blind. She could see it. The kindling maiden's face was radiant, her good eye half-lidded with quiet satisfaction, her stride slow and languid, with a noticeable limp. Likewise, she couldn't help but notice Naruto, who, though also moving just a little slower than before, kept her close to his side. In an instant, Rani realized the truth. She sorely wished she hadn't, because once she did... The fiend! Was there no end to his beastly depredations? Was he really that good? Was a night spent with him truly so satisfying that it wiped one's cares away? Such thoughts almost made her long for the pleasure of the flesh once more, if only for curiosity's sake. Almost. But for now, she held her tongue. Their party made good time through what remained of the Eternal City. Their foes they cut down with brisk dispatch. Those who fled rather than face them, they allowed to retreat, melting back into the shadows. And why shouldn't they? They are not here to conquer, this time. A brief but vicious fight followed when they encountered a handful of furtive Nox sword stresses. Thankfully, those elected to flee, opting to live and fight another day rather than be slain by Naruto and Melina, or worse, the Bloody Lady and Astrid herself. Rani rather approved of their mercy. She had always found the Silent Sisters of Notecron fascinating. They, who first defied the Greater Will and had their city buried beneath the earth. They, who struck back at the Two Fingers and made a god bleed. They, who waited for their Lord of Night. Secure in her pouch, she was left to ponder the matter as her companions, would these servants of the stars worship Naruto someday? Who could say? More mimic tears tried to bar their bath. Thankfully, these soon proved to be senseless beings, unlike the stray they'd encountered outside the city, and was summarily slain. The last took on the impressive form of a towering troll, for all the good it did. The Bloody Lady ran it through with her spear. It fell winded to earth where the rest of the party met it with shadow clones and daggers and axes. Rani took some grim satisfaction in that. The outcome was a foregone conclusion. At least Mimic Tears did not bleed, so there was hardly a mess to contend with. And then, quite suddenly, there it was, the chest. Such a small thing. Naruto didn't even bother to pick the lock. A firm kick shattered it, and then he was crouching down, flipping the lid open from within. A faint shimmering light greeted him as he stabbed a hand into it. So, this is it? Naruto pulled his hand from the weathered trunk and held up the item in question. A wickedly warped blade that almost seemed to pulse in his hands. Seems kinda old. Melina wrinkled her nose. Ghastly thing. Astrid leaned forward to regard it. Is it alive? It was indeed, which made it all the more authentic. No fake, this. This was genuine article. A pleased thrill shot through Rani at the sight of it. She felt a heady thrill of triumph race through her body, and had she a heart, she was sure it would be pounding right about now. Yes! At last! Victory was hers. Well, theirs, technically, but still. The Bloody Lady coughed into a fist. Rani tensed. Blast! She'd forgotten all about her. Now came the moment of truth, the instant of betrayal, the revelation that determined if this so-called Bloody Lady was friend or foe. She waited, bracing herself for the worst. Well done. Their guide only smiled and sketched a genteel curtsy. I wish you good fortune in the wars to come. Surely that couldn't be it. She turned a withering glare about this stranger who claimed to know her. What do you stand to gain from this? Powerful allies, I hope. The ghost of a smile caressed her pale visage as she straightened up with a flourish. I, too, wish to see the influence of the fingers curtailed. It might please you to know that another pair lurks in the Round Table hold. I am aware of them, and she was. They were impotent, powerless, unable to leave the hold for fear of being set upon by those who would have their heads. She turned her gaze back to Naruto. Please bring the blade to me hence. And speaking of blades, should you stumble upon Blade in your journey, tell him. She paused, considered, wrestled with the guilt of the sin she was about to commit, and said her piece. Tell him that I am sorry. His brow furrowed somewhat. Sorry for what? For what I am about to do. She could not hesitate now, no matter how much it might pain her. She would do what must be done. She could not hesitate, nor could she afford show mercy. Blade might well lose his mind once she set out on her grand journey, but once she left this weak body of wood and string behind and ascended to power, once she became a goddess true, she would be able to cure that which plagued him. Hopefully. And if not, then she would grant her loyal hound his rest. Furthermore, there was still the matter of the baleful shadows to which she must attend. She did not dare see out her 2 fingers while those creatures yet prowled the land. It had become abundantly clear that Naruto wasn't about to leave her alone. She may as well make use of him. He was a useful tool, a blunt instrument to better carry out her will. Nothing more, so she told herself. Surely he couldn't be anything more. She would not allow him to worm his way into her heart as he had so many others. Again, so she told herself. And yet, you shall help me, she decreed. I shall brook no disobedience in this matter. Melina quirked a brow in mild annoyance, but mercifully held her tongue. Naruto most assuredly did not. Is that your way of asking nicely? Rani growled at him. Perhaps it is. He smirked. Say please, she growled. Please. He patted her little head with one hand. I'll think about it. Rani made angry Rani noises. Oaf! Fool! Creighton! Did he not understand the importance of this? So be it. The bloody lady piped up again before she could think to rail at him. Then it would seem my part in this is done. But before I go, a gift. She reached up to her forehead and... Naruto balked. Hey, hey! What are you doing? Ripped her great rune free. Here. She stepped to him and offered Mo's great rune up, that eerie, ghastly thing. He didn't resist and let her press it atop his left hand, carving the bloody sigil across his knuckles. Now only 3 remain. Rani bridled both in anger and confusion. 3? She'd certainly said 3 just now, hadn't she? Morgott and Millennia remained surely, but then whose great rune yet remained? Naruto was perilously close to finishing his journey. Few there were to challenge him. So then who? Wait. Did this bloody lady speak of her great rune? No! Nay! Never! She had thrown that wretched thing away for a reason. You should seek out the venerable gold mask in the Altus Plateau. She came back to herself in time to hear the bloody lady speaking once more. He may be of some aid to you. Where will you go? To Caelid, she declared. There is something I must retrieve there. And then the cold north. Her smile seemed almost sad now, somehow. There is someone I must meet. Perhaps we shall meet again. Future Elden Lord? Their wayward whiskered warrior flung up his arms in an aggravated shout. Again with that title! She vanished before their very eyes with a laugh, disappearing in a swirl of bloody mist. Naruto scratched at a whiskered cheek. Well, that's not ominous at all. 0.0. 0.0. It was easier getting out than going in. The world shimmered around Naruto, and he shook himself as reality reasserted itself, struggling to keep his lunch down. Travelling by magic was always something of a lurch, which was precisely why he preferred walking. But even he couldn't deny how useful this was. Besides, this saved them the trouble of having to climb all the way back up. Blur! Kurama groaned in his head. Gonna be sick. Where they'd been teleported to, however, well, that was anyone's guess. Rani's spell had taken them out of Nokron sure enough. He just didn't know where they were. At least the view was nice. Indeed, the weather was beautiful at this hour. A strong breeze blew across the plain, kissing long blades of grass caressed by the waning light of day, a blazing sphere slowly sinking over a nearby hill. He could see the faint silhouette of the stars beginning to form in the sky above, a series of pale pinpricks as the sun yielded to the moon. It was a scene straight from a painting. It made him want to stand and watch it forever, to linger here until the last fading rays of day slipped away. Life wasn't so kind. A word, Elden Lord. Astrid was looking to him, pale face grim and intent. Should have known this was coming. He waved Rani and Melina off. Are you coming with us? For a time, she hedged warily. First, I would give you a warning. He paused at that, looking over his shoulder at Astrid, and let her speak. We shall rise when the time comes, with or without you. And should you fall to frenzy before then, she laid a hand to the axe in her belt of furs, you will die. That was even more ominous than the bloody lady. I don't even know what frenzy is. And well that you do not, she snapped at him. You have not stumbled upon him yet. You have not been tempted, but you will be soon. 2 paths loom before you. Continue on your current one, and all will be well in the end. Falter and the world will burn. Do you understand? You mustn't waver. No matter the cost, no matter the sacrifice. A hand reached out and grasped his forearm. You are the hope for this world, but you mustn't allow yourself to fall into despair. Sacrifice? Melina sprang to the forefront of his mind. He gripped her arm in return, fingers biting down hard enough to draw beads of blood. How much have you seen with these visions of yours? Enough. The seer's reply was guarded, clipped even, her smile a tense one. Speaking of which, you may wish to brace yourself. More riddles. What are you talking about? Mine. What was that? Naruto heard the word from afar and tilted his head to the right. That lone word, carried to him on the wind, growing steadily louder. He looked left, he looked right, not a soul in sight. Yet he could still hear the voice. Odd. Where was it coming from? It sounded so close and yet so far. So where? Mine, mine. All right, he definitely wasn't imagining that. Mine, mine, mine. A strange pang of anxiety crept up on him. Suddenly feeling nervous, he looked around to no avail. No sign of them. Mine, 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 mine. Do you hear that? Mine, 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 mine. Yes. Astrid's smile didn't fade. I do. Mine, 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 mine. Great, he definitely wasn't imagining then. Mine, 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 mine. It sounded an awful lot like mine, 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 mine. Blue eyes bulged in realization. Oh dear, this was going to hurt. Mine, 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 line, tilde. Naruto looked up at the last second. As such, he saw what struck him. Greyroll crashed into him like a falling star, swooped down, swooping was bad, from on high, ripped him off his feet and all but swept him into her arms. He had time enough to yelp, then her wings beat again and they were gone. So too was the world, reality rushing up into the clouds as they left the others behind. Unfortunately, he had more pressing, Matt. You coupled with someone else again before me. Her forehead smashed against his, golden eyes ablaze as they ascended. I can smell her on you. Have you no shame? He grinned at her ruefully, mildly bemused by her temper tantrum. Not really, no. Good to see you again? It was the right thing to say. The dragoness kissed him fiercely, biting his lip as she withdrew. That does it, she growled at him. No more delays. It's my turn. You're coming with me. Now. He laughed despite himself. To where, exactly? She huffed. To the Altus Plateau, of course. Sure, but why? Greyroll was all too happy to give him both a reason and a name. That name thrummed in his blood. He'd heard it before, Lanciex. Chapter 23. With a strong foundation and a little bit of sense and imagination, it just takes the slightest trigger to change a person. Imagine a future version of yourself who's freely surpassed your limits, one who can catch lightning itself. Now go forth, brave warrior. Lay that dragon. You mean slay that dragon, right? I know what I said, Tilde a wise man. Embrace the dragon. Naruto heaved a sigh. You're not going to put me down, are you? Greyroll didn't deign to respond. She gripped him tighter with both arms, utterly uncaring as the wind howled around them. She flew hard and she flew fast, determinedly silent as the world blurred by below them. Clouds whipped past as the land between rushed by in streaks of mottled green and brown and grey, so much so that he could barely see it all. He knew where they were headed, of course. She hadn't been shy about that. That she was being silent about other things, however. Well, that concerned him. In his experience, a quiet dragon was a sneaky dragon, and Greyroll had proven herself a clever girl before. Gods knew what she was up to now. For the most part, their aerial journey was made in sullen silence, save for the steady beat of her wings. He hated silence. It was only when he threatened to break free of her grasp entirely that the transformed dragoness dared to speak. Stop squirming, she bared her teeth at him. I said I would take you to Lanciac, and I will. I don't even know who that is. You will soon enough. She turned a grin on him. It is vital you met her regardless. Vital, was it? He knew that tone of voice, and he squinted at her as the clouds whistled by. You're up to something. Am I? The dragoness's grin was decidedly cheeky. Perish the thought! I haven't the foggiest idea what you could possibly mean. I'll make you drop me. All right, all right. Her voice rose in a plaintive whine when it became clear he could back up his words. We are soon to come to the end of our journey. Best to meet her now before we reach Farum Azula. If we do not deal with her here, she will become another obstacle in our path. His brow furrowed. Farum what now? Her eyes twinkled. Forgive me, I'm getting ahead of myself. We're here. Already? The dragoness preened. See for yourself. Naruto leaned his head over her shoulder and did just that as Greyroll ceased beating her wings and began to glide to the ground. Sure enough, the Altus Plateau sprawled out below them in all its golden glory, spread for miles as far as the eye could see. He could see the pitted plains below where a great battle had been fought, the stragglers of an army long since broken, crouching in their squalid little camps, and there, at the centre of it all, planted in the centre of a great city that could only be Lendel. Wow. Granted, he had seen the Erd tree from afar before, steadily growing closer in the distance, but never quite this close. It really was quite large. He could sense it too, feel its life force, and immediately knew there something was wrong. It was dying. Perhaps that wasn't the right word. The Erd tree had been dying for a terribly long time. He could see its brittle bark and falling leaves from here, feel the ebb and flow of its power as it struggled to cling onto the last dregs of drying dew that sustained it. On a whim, he reached out further with his thoughts and pushed his mind at the great golden boughs, trying to make sense of it all. Pain, agony, suffering. A panicked presence latched onto his mind, assailing him with sight and sensation and sound, an endless barrage that he could barely decipher. He tried to sift through them all, but he couldn't. His mind drowned in words and memories that weren't his own, of a life measured not in years or decades, but centuries and millennia. Eons, a slow degradation, a long death that was finally coming to an end. And there, rising over it all, a voice that cried out for release, for an end. It hurts, it hurts, it hurts, it hurts, no more. Help, make it, stop, help me. He withdrew his thoughts with a wince, flinching. The ring on his finger burned white hot. I am sorry. He had an awful sinking feeling his chest as to who it might be. You can feel it, can't you? Greyroll's whisper snapped him back to reality. Naruto looked down and gasped. The great runes on his body were glowing. Every single one. Panic struck him, and he found himself tempted to break out of Greyroll's grasp and run over to the Erd tree. No, not yet. Resist. There were still things to do. Greyroll swept down and alighted upon a rocky outcropping, set before a verdant plain with golden flowers. Brilliant bolts of lightning struck their stems as he looked on, somehow drawn to their unyielding golden light. He could see the towering wall of Lendel from here, the Erd tree, closer still. All was serene, if not necessarily silent. This spot will do, his tall companion declared, releasing him at the last. Now we need only wait for her to notice our arrival. Rather than retreat, he crouched down to inspect one of those strange flowers. What are these? Greyroll's hand graced his shoulder, fingertips lingering as they trailed past. We call them fulgurbloom in your tongue. He looked up at her. And in yours? She smiled softly, sadly. Lightning's kiss. Lansax once brought a bouquet of such flowers to a mortal she cared dearly for. His frown deepened. By your tone, I'm guessing it didn't end well for her. No, came the immediate rejoinder, barely a whisper. It did not. Kurama sighed in his head. Not ominous at all. He half expected Lanciax to arrive then. No such luck. Craning his neck back, Naruto stood and looked about. The world was silent and still, save for the occasionally crackling flowers. The sun was creeping toward the horizon. Night would be upon them soon. He watched that fiery orb for a moment as it painted the sky red as blood. No white dragon. Nothing at all, unless one counted a stray dove flitting by overhead. I don't see her. Nor do I. Greyroll paced away from him. It seems she hasn't noticed us yet. We shall have to draw her out. A decent idea, but the execution needed some work. And how do you suggest we do that? With great difficulty. She thumbed her chin, considering. As much as I wish I were, I am not an ancient dragon, and cannot simply command her to show herself. She will not heed my call. He saw a scarlet spark flicker over her clawed fingers. I am simply a conduit for Lord Placidus power when he chooses to bestow it. Like you did during your battle with Rodan. She flashed him a pleased smile. Remember that, do you? It feels like a lifetime ago. It really did, didn't it? They'd come so far, changed so many lives. But things were coming to an end. He could feel it in his bones. Life was going to change soon in the lands between. He wasn't sure if that was a good or bad thing. There has to be a way to get her attention, he said at last. There must be. You wouldn't bring me here otherwise. Greyroll pointedly looked away from him. There is. I'm willing to do whatever it takes. She pivoted and made a pleased sound, practically a purr. I'm so glad you said that. Her piece said. She strode forward, sashayed his way, really hip, swaying beneath her dress. Greyroll did not walk. She stalked, wings tucked against her back, horns glinting in the crackling light of the lightning, her bright eyes half-lidded with dark promise. He had an inkling of what she intended. It was only confirmed when the tall dragoness reached down and laid a hand on his cheek. Her smile was nothing short of seductive, sweet as sin. Lay me. Blue eyes bulged. Really? The word burst out of him in a cough. Now? Here? Yes, really. She stomped a foot, looking quite put out. I have been quite patient, tolerant even as you gallivanted about the lands between, claiming other women. Such is your right, of course. The strong are drawn to the strong. But you are my mate, and you have paid me precious little attention as of late. She placed a fist against her chin and tilted her head. Do you not find me attractive? Do you not desire me? Her arms moved just so, crossing beneath her bountiful bosom. Do you not wish me to bear your heirs, your sons and daughters? His throat closed a little at that last one. First fear, now her. Why was everyone in the lands between so baby crazy? But the idea didn't really sound half bad. He'd always wanted a large family. Maybe once this was over. Aha! Greyroll must have seen something in his eyes she liked, because she all but glowed with triumph. You do, you know that. Her face glowed a little at that. But of course, I simply wished to hear it again before you kiss me again. We dragons have our pride. Stroking her ego much. He planed a fist on his hip. You'll say that acting like this is a foregone conclusion or something. It is. She practically preened. You and I are meant to be. We are inevitable. Our children will rule this world. Stubborn girl. A sigh slipped out of him. I don't exactly enjoy the idea of doing it out here in the rough. Why ever not? She tilted her head, quite baffled by his words. The ground is quite soft. Hold it. A blonde brow rose. There's something you're not telling me, isn't there? She winced, caught out. There is another reason for this, of course. Naturally. When she didn't answer, he began to tap a foot. Say it, Grey scowled. If I tell you this story, you mustn't laugh. Cross my heart and hope to die. I shall hold you to that. You see, Lanciax had a human she fancied. Greyroll reached down and took his face in her hands, thumbs caressing his whiskered cheeks. A knight, a brave and true soul not unlike you. His name was Vike. She adored him and pursued him in human form. It was she who taught him the art of lightning. Indeed, she gave him everything she had. Her fingers bit into his visage, trying to make him flinch, and when he didn't, she smiled and continued her tale of woe. Alas, he spurned her affections in favour of his maiden. He then fell to frenzied flame, trying to save her. This was all some time ago, you understand. There it was. That word again. What on earth was this frenzied flame? Moreover, why was everyone so terrified of it? Astrid had warned him of it, and now Greyroll. Thoughts for later, he supposed. But Greyroll was still speaking, and he must attend. Even I do not know what became of him when he sought an audience with the 3 fingers. Whatever it was, it burnt his armour and drove him mad. Was he killed? Was he lost? Was he sealed away in an evergale, left to rot in his insanity? Her broad shoulders rolled in a shrug. I cannot tell you these things, for I truly do not know what became of him afterward. What I can tell you is this. She kissed him suddenly, biting his lip as she drew away. She is a proud dragon. If there is one thing in this world, what will draw her attention, it will be this. She reached up, tugged at the straps of her gown and rolled her shoulders. Her pale dress pooled at her feet, bearing her body to him in her entirety. Naruto's throat went dry. He'd always known she was tall, but damn, bigger really was better. Who knew? A human and one of her kind, making love beneath the Erd tree. Greyroll leaned in, took hold of one of his hands and pressed it to her bare breast while simultaneously pressing her lips to his again. Her kisses were fire, warming his blood as he returned them, heating his body to a feverish degree. This shall do more than merely catch her eye. It shall remind her of the past and all she could have had. That will enrage her like no other. Her free hands rose, helping him remove his gauntlets, followed by much of his armor, until he bared his upper torso to her. Still, she continued to poke and prod him with lingering touches and lasting kisses. It was driving him mad. He wanted out of this armor. He wanted... She will come for us, and when she does, you must defeat her completely and utterly. With one last, lingering kiss, Greyroll took him by both of his hands and drew him into her embrace, but didn't guide him down to the ground as he expected. Instead, she held him at arm's length. She looked like she wanted nothing more than to ravage him, yet somehow she restrained herself at the last. Let her strike first, but leave no room for doubt afterward. Her defeat must be absolute. A distant rumble echoed in the distance. One last thing. I meant what I said. She leaned in, soulful eyes meeting his. Just as I am your mate, so are you mine. You are mine, and I am yours. Always and forever. Nothing she says will change that. He dove in to kiss her again, hands lingering on her hips as she nibbled at his neck, biting hard enough to leave a mark. Is she really that much stronger than you? Oh, yes. Her grin became decidedly cheeky. That's why you'll be the one fighting her. The threesome comes afterward. Once you've dominated her, of course. Naruto absolutely twitched, eyes widening. That sneaky, clever girl. Now wait just a second. There was no waiting. Lanciax struck the ground behind them in a crimson comet. Her roar was his only warning. You dare! And the world burst into crimson light. With a strong foundation and a little bit of sense and imagination, it just takes the slightest trigger to change a person. Imagine a future version of yourself who's freely surpassed your limits. One who can catch lightning itself. Now go forth, brave warrior. Lay that dragon! You mean slay that dragon, right? I know what I said. Tilda, a wise man. Embraced the dragon, Naruto heaved a sigh. You're not going to put me down, are ya? Greyroll didn't deign to respond. She gripped him tighter with both arms, utterly uncaring as the wind howled around them. She flew hard and she flew fast, determinedly silent as the world blurred by below them. Clouds whipped past as the land between rushed by in streaks of mottled green and brown and grey, so much so that he could barely see it all. He knew where they were headed, of course. She hadn't been shy about that. That she was being silent about other things, however. Well, that concerned him. In his experience, a quiet dragon was a sneaky dragon, and Greyroll had proven herself a clever girl before. Gods knew what she was up to now. For the most part, their aerial journey was made in sullen silence save for the steady beat of her wings. He hated silence. It was only when he threatened to break free of her grasp entirely that the transformed dragoness dared to speak. Stop squirming, she bared her teeth at him. I said I would take you to Lanciac, and I will. I don't even know who that is. You will soon enough. She turned a grin on him. It is vital you met her regardless. Vital, was it? He knew that tone of voice, and he squinted at her as the clouds whistled by. You're up to something. Am I? The dragoness's grin was decidedly cheeky. Perish the thought. I haven't the foggiest idea what you could possibly mean. I'll make you drop me. All right, all right. Her voice rose in a plaintive whine when it became clear he could back up his words. We are soon to come to the end of our journey. Best to meet her now before we reach Farum Azula. If we do not deal with her here, she will become another obstacle in our path. His brow furrowed. Farum what now? Her eyes twinkled. Forgive me, I'm getting ahead of myself. We're here. Already? The dragoness preened. See for yourself. Naruto leaned his head over her shoulder and did just that as Greyroll ceased beating her wings and began to glide to the ground. Sure enough, the Altus Plateau sprawled out below them in all its golden glory, spread for miles as far as the eye could see. He could see the pitted plains below where a great battle had been fought, the stragglers of an army long since broken, crouching in their squalid little camps. And there, at the centre of it all, planted in the centre of a great city that could only be Leyndell. Wow, Granted, he had seen the Erd tree from afar before, steadily growing closer in the distance, but never quite this close. It really was quite large. He could sense it too, feel its life force, and immediately knew something was wrong. It was dying. Perhaps that wasn't the right word. The Erd tree had been dying for a terribly long time. He could see its brittle bark and falling leaves from here, feel the ebb and flow of its power as it struggled to cling onto the last dregs of drying dew that sustained it. On a whim, he reached out further with his thoughts and pushed his mind at the great golden boughs, trying to make sense of it all. Pain, agony, suffering. A panicked presence latched onto his mind, assailing him with sight and sensation and sound, an endless barrage that he could barely decipher. He tried to sift through them all, but he couldn't. His mind drowned in words and memories that weren't his own, of a life measured not in years or decades, but centuries and millennia. Eons, a slow degradation, a long death that was finally coming to an end. And there, rising over it all, a voice that cried out for release, for an end. It hurts, it hurts, it hurts, it hurts, no more help, make it stop, make it stuff, help me. Yay! He withdrew his thoughts with a wince, flinching. The ring on his finger burned white hot. I am sorry. He had an awful sinking feeling his chest as to who it might be. You can feel it, can't you? Greyroll's whisper snapped him back to reality. Naruto looked down and gasped. The great runes on his body were glowing. Every single one. Panic struck him, and he found himself tempted to break out of Greyroll's grasp and run over to the Erd tree. No, not yet. Resist. There were still things to do. Greyroll swept down and alighted upon a rocky outcropping set before a verdant plain with golden flowers. Brilliant bolts of lightning struck their stems as he looked on, somehow drawn to their unyielding golden light. He could see the towering wall of Lendl from here, the Erd tree closer still. All was serene, if not necessarily silent. This spot will do, his tall companion declared, releasing him at the last. Now we need only wait for her to notice our arrival. Rather than retreat, he crouched down to inspect one of those strange flowers. What are these? Greyroll's hand graced his shoulder, fingertips lingering as they trailed past. We call them Fulgurbloom in your tongue. He looked up at her. And in yours? She smiled softly, sadly. Lightning's kiss. Lanciax once brought a bouquet of such flowers to a mortal she cared dearly for. His frown deepened. By your tone, I'm guessing it didn't end well for her. No, came the immediate rejoinder, barely a whisper. It did not. Kurama sighed in his head. Not ominous at all. He half expected Lanciax to arrive then. No such luck. Craning his neck back, Naruto stood and looked about. The world was silent and still save for the occasionally crackling flowers. The sun was creeping toward the horizon. Night would be upon them soon. He watched that fiery orb for a moment as it painted the sky red as blood. No white dragon. Nothing at all, unless one counted a stray dove flitting by overhead. I don't see her. Nor do I. Greyroll paced away from him. It seems she hasn't noticed us yet. We shall have to draw her out. A decent idea, but the execution needed some work. And how do you suggest we do that? With great difficulty. She thumbed her chin, considering. As much as I wish I were, I am not an ancient dragon and cannot simply command her to show herself. She will not heed my call. He saw a scarlet spark flicker over her clawed fingers. I am simply a conduit for Lord Placidus's power when he chooses to bestow it, like you did during your battle with Radahn. She flashed him a pleased smile. Remember that, do you? It feels like a lifetime ago. It really did, didn't it? They'd come so far, changed so many lives. But things were coming to an end. He could feel it in his bones. Life was going to change soon in the lands between. He wasn't sure if that was a good or bad thing. There has to be a way to get her attention, he said at last. There must be. You wouldn't bring me here otherwise? Greyroll pointedly looked away from him. There is. I'm willing to do whatever it takes. She pivoted and made a pleased sound, practically a purr. I'm so glad you said that, her piece said. She strode forward, sashayed his way, really hips swaying beneath her dress. Greyroll did not walk. She stalked, wings tucked against her back, horns glinting in the crackling light of the lightning, her bright eyes half-lidded with dark promise. He had an inkling of what she intended. It was only confirmed when the tall dragoness reached down and laid a hand on his cheek. Her smile was nothing short of seductive, sweet as sin. Lay me, blue eyes bulged. Really? The word burst out of him in a cough. Now? Here? Yes, really. She stomped a foot, looking quite put out. I have been quite patient, tolerant even as you gallivanted about the lands between, claiming other women. Such is your right, of course. The strong are drawn to the strong. But you are my mate, and you have paid me precious little attention as of late. She placed a fist against her chin and tilted her head. Do you not find me attractive? Do you not desire me? Her arms moved just so, crossing beneath her bountiful bosom. Do you not wish me to bear your heirs, your sons and daughters? His throat closed a little at that last one, first fear, now her. Why was everyone in the lands between so baby crazy? But the idea didn't really sound half bad. He'd always wanted a large family. Maybe once this was over. Aha! Greyroll must have seen something in his eyes she liked, because she all but glowed with triumph. You do! You know that. Her face glowed a little at that. But of course, I simply wish to hear it again before you kiss me again. We dragons have our pride. Stroking her ego much, he planed a fist on his hip. You'll say that acting like this is a foregone conclusion or something. It is. She practically preened. You and I are meant to be. We are inevitable. Our children will rule this world. Stubborn girl. A sigh slipped out of him. I don't exactly enjoy the idea of doing it out here in the rough. Why ever not? She tilted her head, quite baffled by his words. The ground is quite soft. Hold it. A blonde brow rose. There's something you're not telling me, isn't there? She winced, caught out. Yes. There is another reason for this, of course. Naturally. When she didn't answer, he began to tap a foot. Say it. Grey scowled. If I tell you this story, you mustn't laugh. Cross my heart and hope to die. I shall hold you to that. You see, Lanciax had a human she fancied. Greyroll reached down and took his face in her hands, thumbs caressing his whiskered cheeks. A knight, a brave and true soul not unlike you. His name was Vike. She adored him and pursued him in human form. It was she who taught him the art of lightning. Indeed, she gave him everything she had. Her fingers bit into his visage, trying to make him flinch, and when he didn't, she smiled and continued her tale of woe. Alas, he spurned her affections in favour of his maiden. He then fell to frenzied flame, trying to save her. This was all some time ago, you understand. There it was. That word again. What on earth was this frenzied flame? Moreover, why was everyone so terrified of it? Astrid had warned him of it, and now Greyroll. Thoughts for later, he supposed. Ah, but Greyroll was still speaking, and he must attend. Even I do not know what became of him when he sought an audience with the 3 fingers. Whatever it was, it burnt his armour and drove him mad. Was he killed? Was he lost? Was he sealed away in an Evergale, left to rot in his insanity? Her broad shoulders rolled in a shrug. I cannot tell you these things, for I truly do not know what became of him afterward. What I can tell you is this. She kissed him suddenly, biting his lip as she drew away. She is a proud dragon. If there is one thing in this world, what will draw her attention, it will be this. She reached up, tugged at the straps of her gown and rolled her shoulders. Her pale dress pooled at her feet, bearing her body to him in her entirety. Naruto's throat went dry. He had always known she was tall, but damn, bigger really was better. Who knew? A human and one of her kind, making love beneath the Erd tree. Greyroll leaned in, took hold of one of his hands and pressed it to her bare breast, while simultaneously pressing her lips to his again. Her kisses were fire, warming his blood as he returned them, heating his body to a feverish degree. This shall do more than merely catch her eye. It shall remind her of the past and all she could have had. That will enrage her like no other. Her free hands rose, helping him remove his gauntlets, followed by much of his armour, until he bared his upper torso to her. Still, she continued to poke and prod him with lingering touches and lasting kisses. It was driving him mad. He wanted out of this armour. He wanted! She will come for us, and when she does, you must defeat her completely and utterly. With one last lingering kiss, Greyroll took him by both of his hands and drew him into her embrace, but didn't guide him down to the ground as he expected. Instead, she held him at arm's length. She looked like she wanted nothing more than to ravage him, yet somehow she restrained herself at the last. Let her strike first, but leave no room for doubt afterward. Her defeat must be absolute. A distant rumble echoed in the distance. One last thing. I meant what I said. She leaned in, soulful eyes meeting his. Just as I am your mate, So are you mine. You are mine and I am yours, always and forever. Nothing she says will change that. He dove in to kiss her again, hands lingering on her hips as she nibbled at his neck, biting hard enough to leave a mark. Is she really that much stronger than you? Oh yes. Her grin became decidedly cheeky. That's why you'll be the one fighting her. The threesome comes afterward, once you've dominated her, of course. Naruto absolutely twitched, eyes widening. That sneaky, clever girl. Now wait just a second. There was no waiting. Lanciac struck the ground behind them in a crimson comet. Her roar was his only warning. You dare! And the world burst into crimson light. Chapter 24. Love. What do you know of love, Tarnished? There is nothing so dangerous in the lands between as love. Some seek love, and a lucky few even manage to find it, albeit at a terrible cost to themselves. Others pine for another unrequited, only to be rejected by the object of their affections. And then, oh yes, there are those who love yet never know love at all. Yet nevertheless, we seek it endlessly. Love is dangerous. For you see, love drives us insane. Tilda Morgott. What I cannot have, Lanciacs seethed. Those fiends. The absolute fiends. Those cads, the dastards, the bastards! How dare they? She would tear the flesh from their very bones, rip them asunder and parade their shattered souls before Lord Placidus Sax himself. All right, perhaps that last bit was a tad excessive, but she couldn't bring herself to care at the moment. Fire and blood, lightning and death, vengeance and fury. These were the things she knew, the things she wanted, the things she craved here now, in this moment. And by the skies, she would have it. Her prey had no way of knowing, but this was precious to her beyond words. It was the very place where she'd first met her dear beloved Vike, then later brought a bouquet of fresh fulgubloom, dragon's kiss, in her tongue to him, only to be summarily rejected for her efforts. How that memory stung even centuries later. Now she'd found a human and a dragon rutting here in this most scared of places. She'd heard them first, smelled them second, then saw them. And once she did, her rage knew no bounds. Rage! Ha! Exterminate! She slashed a claw down and then howled her fury when she missed again. Her prey was slippery. Cloaked in red lightning, she nevertheless fought on. Her screams conjured crimson bolts from the sky, her wings created a hurricane, and her breath, death. The dragon in her rejoiced at the prospect of battle, even as her human half raged at the futility of it all. It was like trying to fight a hurricane, one full of grins, snappy retorts, and laughter. So much laughter! Every time she thought she had him, he slipped through her claws with otherworldly grace and got right in her face. All the world was a red sea and she was drowning in it, such was her ire. Grey roll! She swiped at them anew. I shall peel off your every scale and leave thee to bleed. This I swear! The mother of dragons dodged back and grinned at her, still wearing naught but a smile. My mate might have something to say about that Tilda. Oh, blast, she'd forgotten about the blonde one again. A golden fist thundered into the side of her skull and her world inverted. Down she went, cratering the earth, tearing great chunks from the soil. She tried to right herself only for a boot to stomp down on her head and render her face intimate with the fulgubloom once more. Lightning crackled across her snout and she sneezed furiously. She craned her head back to glare at him. You dare? Do you honestly think you can best me? The blonde human, tarnished, cracked his neck side to side, uncaring for his naked upper torso, and grinned at her. Smear and find out. A bolt of red lightning sizzled to life in her claw. You will die slowly. Been there, done that, didn't stick. She struck down, only for him to strike back with a roar of his own, and it was she who was rebuffed. How? A merry laugh was her reward. Wind trumps lightning. Impossible. Pretty possible, actually. His grin didn't waver as he diverted another clawed strike with a rush of wind. Scarlet lightning struck him and fizzled out harmlessly, allowing him to slug her and send her spinning to the ground in a heap once more. Haven't you ever heard of elemental matchups? She flared her four wings with a shriek. Stop talking and just die. He didn't, of course. No, of course not. That would be too easy. Preposterous. He was just a tarnished. He wasn't even a demigod or touched by dragons. It just wasn't possible. What was he? He alighted atop her head, grinning like a Cheshire cat. Just a man. Was he reading her mind now? Wretched tarnished. I have a name, you know. It's Naruto. I don't care. He backflipped under her raking claws, dove low, then skidded between her legs, striking wildly as he went. Her limbs decided they couldn't be bothered with this bull anymore and buckled. The moment she did, she felt a weight settle upon on her tail. Her panic mounted as surely as the smiling shinobi cradling the most sensitive part of her. Draconic eyes bulged and she tried to protest. Too late. Wait! Naruto did no such thing. He spun her around like a certain spiky-shelled lizard who shall not be named and tossed her with a triumphant cry. Aura! Lanciac struck the ground like a falling star. Momentum wasn't merciful. She had enough thought to tuck her wings in to avoid breaking them before she completely lost control of herself. She must have blacked out at some point because when she awoke, her body lay sprawled in the grass, surrounded by torn dirt and mud. Her eyes widened at the sight that awaited her. No, her great scaly bulk had carved an ugly swathe through the fulgur bloom, destroying them all. No! She adopted her human guise in an instant, scales shimmering into human skin, but it was already too late. No! Red eyes blazed as white hair swayed in the hair and white robes billowed out behind her, but she may as well have been naked in this moment, such as her pain. Trembling hands fumbled for the battered blooms, only for the crackling flowers to crumble in her grasp. Still she clutched at them, trying to save what she could. Each time her deeds were met with failure. A shadow fell over her. Lanciax knew to whom it belonged. She glared up hatefully at the tarnished. Monster! She flung the scattered petals at him with a shriek. How could you? Look what you've done. These were all I had left of him. Another handful of crackling flowers struck his face, eliciting a wince. All I had. And now it's gone forever. He stared down at her wordlessly, inflaming her fury to new heights. This was the place where I lost him. And for what? A fool of a girl who died anyway. Now you've even taken the memory of him from me. It all so pointless that she wanted to weep. Why? He didn't answer. Somehow the silence stung more than mere words. Damn it! Damn him! Damn this tarnished! She surged upright with a feral snarl, conjuring a glaive of purest red light to her human hand. He had no room to dodge. With this, it would end. She would slay him, and that was a very big fox. A massive beast of gold and black burst into existence between her and the baffling blonde. It was large, far larger than it had any right to be. It would have dwarfed her even in her dragon form. Without so much as a sound, it callously caught her glaive and shattered it. Broken shards of red lightning splintered in every direction. The sheer shockwave of such sundered her robes and slammed her down into the muck all over again. An awful crack filled her ears as she felt 3 of her ribs break. This was it then. Her final hour. Death came for her. Why wasn't she dead yet? She looked up. As she looked on the tarnished, Naruto dispelled that terrifying golden beast and alighted before her one last time. His body shone with ethereal light. Freed from her rage for the moment, Lanciax finally saw him for what he was. His body shone. Not just with golden light, but those of so many great runes. One lay engraved upon his neck, another to his chest, 2 more to his arms, and even one upon the back of one hand. So many runes. Even her Vike had only ever held 2, except he wasn't her Vike, was he? For a moment, just a sliver of a second, she could have sworn she saw him standing behind Naruto, overlapping him, tall and strong in the light of the Erd tree. He too offered her his hand. It's over. Time to throw in the towel. Lanciax rasped a bitter laugh into the mud. Such a vicious joke. Life was cruel. Somehow she doubted the afterlife would be any different. Why? Why couldn't her Vike be like this? But he wasn't her Vike, had she? He never was. He never had been. He never would be. If he had, he would have faced her in combat. He would have been her mate. He would have made her happy. He wouldn't have left her broken and bleeding in the mud like this one. It was too much. Her heart broke. She burst into tears. Why does she love you? Her fist slammed down, cratering the ruined soil and the scattered flower petals underfoot. Why do you have what I don't? Another punch sent a jolt of pain racing up her wrist, but she was too bereft to care. Tell me why. Here at last her strength failed and crumpled to her knees, clutching her ribs. I don't want to die, I want to be happy, I want to be loved. Naruto's hand descended. Lanciax braced herself for the final blow. Let it be done. No more torment, no more pain, no more anything. Just sweet release. She knew she wouldn't see Vike in the afterlife and no longer cared. Just make it stop. She would accept whatever punishment was bestowed upon her in the hereafter. Anything was better than this. A hand closed around her wrist. So he was going to tear her apart then. So be it. Naruto tugged her to feet and pressed his lips against hers. It was a brief, fleeting thing as his mouth caged hers, yet it ignited something in Lanciax all the same. Finally. She'd been waiting for a kiss like this for centuries. Her eyes fluttered shut and she found herself melting into him momentarily, tilting her head to the right for a better angle and returning it before she came back to her senses. Once she did, embarrassment was quick to follow. Embarrassment, and a spark of desire so powerful it left her aching for more. She jolted backward with a yelp and reeled away, one hand touching her lips. Why? He flicked her forehead. Because this Vike of yours was an idiot. Her eyes widened in absolute outrage at such vulgarity. How dare you speak of... Let me finish. He held up a hand for stalling her outburst. Whoever he might be, he was an idiot to throw you away. You're beautiful, strong, loyal, and you're probably going to live damn near forever. Am I wrong? She tried to muster anger only to fail spectacularly. No, certainly she was all of things and so much more, but oh my. Her head spun. She was still reeling from that kiss. It had been her fist kiss. She'd wanted something like that for so long and had despaired at not having it, yet now she wanted another. No, more than another, her blood was up now, and she wanted... What did she want now exactly? To kill the tarnished before her? Or perhaps maybe, just maybe. Naruto took her hands in his and she damn near jumped out of her skin. Close. Too close. What was she supposed to do when he was so close? Her heart hammered in her ears like the drums of a great hunt, and her very blood sang, aching for contact. She wanted to be touched, she wanted to be held, she wanted him over her, under her, behind her, in her, and a whole host of other things she didn't dare say aloud. I meant what I said. His voice rooted her, hypnotized her, drew her in. He was a dumbass to cast you aside. Only an idiot would do that. Her legs quivered. How long had she waited to hear those words? To hear someone say it wasn't her fault, that it had never been her fault. Her resistance began to crumble. She wanted to weep all over again, not from sorrow but joy. Such was the relief she felt in this moment. Well said. Greyroll swept in from the side, uncaring for her nakedness. And what of you? Has your heart calmed now? I suppose. Lanciax looked away. How should she feel? Her blood was up and that kiss had only riled her up. The younger dragon smiled. It was not a nice smile. Good, that makes this easier. Makes what? Her voice peaked a startled notch as the shorter dragoness embraced her from behind. What are you doing? You lost, Lanciax. Greyroll wrapped an arm round her waist, even as her lips sought her neck, delicately kissing the pale expanse of skin there. Your life lies in his hands. You know what that means? By oldest laws of our kind. Lanciax gulped. She did indeed remember the old ways. Dragons sought strength in a mate, bonding to whomever could defeat them. She'd simply never thought to find herself on the receiving end of them. Or quite so willing towards such an arrangement. Wait. Surely they weren't going to, were they? Greyroll's hand delved lower still, parting her ruined robes. Naruto kissed her a heartbeat later, and no, so gently this time. The dual pleasure drove her wild, both breaking and freeing her in the same moment. She melted into him and bit at his lip in return, draping her arms around his neck before he could even think to draw away. Greyroll took full advantage of her distraction, nibbling at her neck, running a hand down her flank, drawing a fresh body shiver. Her skin tingled anew in an almost sinful way now. Her thoughts were growing fuzzy, obscured by the promise of pleasure. With a tarnished at her and a fell dragon at her back, really, she didn't know where to look. In the end, desire finally won out. Lust battered down the last wall of her self-restraint with gusto. Take me. The word tore out of her in a gasp. Stop teasing me and just take me. She tackled Naruto to the ground. Greyroll jumped her in return. Lanciax would remember what followed most fondly. Her world dissolved into depraved debauchery. A great many hours later. Morgott heard him. Or them, he supposed. He was old, mind you, not deaf. And those approaching were far from subtle about it. He heard their banter before they breached the gate of golden fog. They were bickering about something. Children? He only caught the tail end of it, and he certainly wasn't curious enough to make a meal of the matter. For you see, he was somewhat nonplussed to find that he recognized this particular tarnished. Oh, hey. He found himself recognized in turn. You again, huh? And here I thought, I'd seen the last of you. And so we meet once more, boy. He stomped down the steps to meet him, clearing them two at a time to reach the thrones. You shall not triumph this time. The whiskered tarnished had not come alone. Indeed, he was flanked by two women bearing horns. Ah, so he had allied himself with dragons. A pity. There was another, some faint nebulous presence tickling at the edge of his senses. Where was its owner? Were they hiding from him? Lurking in the shadows, sheltering themselves in astral for perhaps? It was of no consequence to him. And now you consort with dragons? How you have fallen. One of them beamed. Oh yes, we do much consorting. Very loudly. The taller of the two palmed her face, now cherry red, with a groan. Greyroll, no. Greyroll, yes! Her companion only laughed, much to Morgott's confusion. It was a very reproductive time for us. Naruto heaved a rueful sigh. I think you mean productive there, Grey. She licked her lips happily. Huh? I know what I said. Such depravity. It stirred something ugly in him. I suppose you think you love another? He scoffed at the lot of them. Naruto met his stare evenly. I care about them, yeah. Does it bother you that much? Love. Ha! A bitter laugh rumbled out of him. What do you know of love, tarnished? There is nothing so dangerous in the lands between as love. It is a poison, a plague, a pestilence. He clicked his tongue, scoffing at the two glaring dragonkin. Some seek love, and a lucky few even manage to find it, albeit at a terrible cost to themselves. Others pine for another unrequited, only to be rejected by the object of their affections. Oh, how one of them flinched at that. And then, oh yes, there are those who love, yet never know love at all. Yet nevertheless, we seek it endlessly. A fist clenched at his side, biting into his palm until his own accursed blood threatened to flow freely from his fingers. Love is dangerous, for you see, love drives us insane. He expected an outburst, anger, seething denial at the very least, a contest of his claim. A shrug was, by far, the last thing he expected. Meh? Then call me crazy. Morgott blinked. He blinked hard. I beg your pardon? Naruto tilted his head. Did I stutter? You certainly didn't. Greyroll huffed and clung to his arm. The veiled king indeed. She sneered at him furiously. Clearly thine eyes are veiled as well, Morgott. Lanciax crowded in on his other side, flashing her fangs. It's a shame, really. You've closed your heart to the world. So be it. A fool he was then. Fools, the lot of them. Graceless tarnished. Morgott rasped out a sigh, desperately trying to steer the conversation back to less debauched waters. What is thy business with these thrones? His gaze roved over the empty seats, recalling a time when they had once been filled by loyal friend and allies. Godric the Golden, the twin prodigies Miquella and Millennia, General Radahn, Praetor Rykard. And what had these allies done? What had they become? Willful traitors all! And you are no different. He slammed his cane down and shifted his grip, preparing for what was to come. Thy kind are all of a piece, pillagers. His fingers cracked around his cherished weapon, freeing the blade within. Emboldened by the flame of ambition. I shall have it writ upon thy meagre grave. He swept his sword outward with a snarl, felled by King Morgott. Last of all, then he saw Morg's rune and his speech withered on his tongue. Morgott cared for few in this world, but his heart shattered all the same. He took one look at the boy's hand, saw his twin's rune, and brandished his blade with a hiss. My own brother! Thy greed knows no end, usurper! Tainted light shimmered across his blade, promising pain. You're no different from the rest, smouldering with thy meagre flame of ambition. I didn't kill your brother. Lies! He brandished his blade. You bear his great rune. The tarnished flung up his arms. Some crazy blonde lady gave it to me. Those words gave Morgott pause for the merest of moment. A blonde woman, Marika. But no, she was sealed within the Erd tree, unable to leave. Wasn't she? No, it changed nothing. He must die all the same. This blonde woman would be dealt with later. For now, blood demanded blood. Greyroll stepped back, dragging Lanciax with her. We'll just let you have the first round then, shall we? Morgott needed no further encouragement. His loping stride burst into a lunge. This time, he would not hold back. He would take the boy's head in a single swing. Look, I really don't want to fight you. You seem like a good guy, yow. To his credit, Naruto ducked a frenzied flurry of blows, hopped over his tile, parried his blade, and slapped aside his hammer before countering with a hammer blow of his own. Listen to me, damn it! I didn't come here to fight, but if you keep pushing me, oi! Morgott rushed him with a snarl. Naruto met him in stride. If he had been fast before now, he was a blur now. Steel met steel. He was somewhat surprised to see that none other than one of Radahan's Starscourge greatswords had stymied him. Ah, so that was his great rune after all. 'Twould seem the Tarnished had been busy in his absence. No matter, he could still keep up with Rasengan! Morgott failed to see that attack until it struck, but thought himself prepared for it all the same. He slammed backward, crashed down on one knee, caught himself with his sword and... Pain overtook him a second later. Something came loose in him. His accursed blood, contained for so long, rushed forth in a geyser around him, tainting the very earth underfoot. The thrones, stained by my curses. A low growl tore out of his throat as he dragged himself upright. Such shame I cannot bear. Thy part in this shall not be forgiven. Me! The blonde bastard before him actually had the gall to look indignant. What did I do? I'm just trying to keep you from killing me. But you know what? Fine. He pointed a massive greatsword at him, lips curling in a scowl. One way or another, I'm getting that great rune. You're either going to hand it to me, or I'll take it off your cold corpse. What's it going to be, Morgott? They collided in a storm of steel, whirling and flipping, snarling and slashing, tearing at each other like a pair of beasts. Even now you fail to understand. He laughed bitterly at him as they clashed, lamenting his naivete. Tarnished, thou'rt but a fool. His weapons clashed against the blonde Starscourge greatswords in a deadlock, and he leaned over them with a sneer. The Erdtree wards off all who deign approach. We are all of us forsaken. Bitter laughter tumbled out of him. None may claim the title of Elden Lord. Thy forsaken deeds shall be met with failure just as I. We are lost. Defeat me and see for yourself. Something hardened in the young man's eyes. He recognized it too late. Fine. His head rose. But just remember, you asked for this. Naruto dropped his weapons. Morgott frowned, baffled by the sudden switch. He never saw the rousing uppercut that smashed into his chin. In truth, he didn't even realize he'd left the ground until his back struck the upper branches of the Erdtree. Agony seared up his spine as his body broke against a stern golden bough, then tenfold now as a golden meteor rocketed up to greet him. A fist slammed into his gut and folded him in half. He gagged, clutching at his gut in a vain attempt to stymie the pain. Mistakes were made. The moment his defenses dropped, the pain began. 1, 2, 3, 4 now. On and on the barrage went, clenched fists beating him east, west, north and south. Oh, he realized distantly. The boy's been holding back as well. I've blundered, haven't I? Are you done, Morgott? A hand tore one of his horns off and slammed it into his collarbone, then dragged it down, eviscerating him. Are you enjoying yourself? A fist smashed into his throat, rendering his words a startled croak, even as a third blow blooded his nose and snapped his head to the side. Is that what you wanted? Another punch obliterated his nose and right eye in a shower of red viscera, darkening half his world forevermore. Have you learned your lesson yet? His tail cracked out in a desperate defense, and the blonde tore it clean off. Well, speak up. Answer me, damn it, Morgott croaked. I yield. Golden knuckles filled his vision. Then darkness. After all the pain he'd suffered, unconsciousness was a blessed reprieve. Chapter 25. You're early, my knight. Tilda, you cannot pass. Will he live? Naruto looked past Greyroll and gave the battered, beaten, broken body of Morgott a brief once-over. The last of his wounds had been closed, his concussion mended, horns reattached, all. By rights he should have woken up by now. He nudged his fallen foe gently with a booted foot for good measure. The Lord of Lanedale groaned in response but otherwise remained where he lay. Another soft nudge didn't even accomplish that. The Omen King wheezed out a weak breath and refused to open his eyes. He was still clinging to life, if only just. Hard to say, he shrugged. I've done all I can for him. It's in his hands now. Make no mistake, Morgott still drew breath, but his life lay in limbo. He'd held a great many runes, thousands, upon his defeat, and now they all belonged to him. Even now his body trembled with the energy of them all, untapped power ready to be turned into strength at Melina's hand. It was a dangerous, heady feeling, one he could addicted to if he wasn't careful. But whereas he'd grown strong, the once mighty Omen Lord looked old and frail at his feet, smaller now, no longer the towering titan he'd once been, his strength spent, body a shriveled shell of its former glory. He could heal his wounds and already had, kind soul that he was, but it fell to Morgott to decide whether or not he would wake. He had yielded and accepted defeat, yes, but that had been under duress. With his spirit broken and his great runes stolen, he had ignored any and all attempts to awaken him. He might not even want to. Still, this victory was theirs, however bittersweet it might be. With an awful crack of light, he slapped Morgott's great rune down onto his body. Kurama garbled a growl in his head as the world swam for a moment. I'll never get used to that feeling. There was the briefest flicker of pain as he claimed his prize, and then it was gone, leaving his latest trophy shining on the back of his free hand, a gentle glowing gold, standing in stark contrast to Morg's blood-red rune, calm and peaceful, while the other swirled with blood and madness. Morg! Just who had he been? He'd never met the demigod himself, but apparently the bloody lady had bested him and taken his rune before giving it to him. By all accounts, she'd made him sound like a horrible person, a monster who cared only for his dynasty. And yet, he had been Morgott's brother. He'd meant something to him, enough to send Omen King into a frenzy the moment he'd seen his rune. That implied at least some form of brotherly love on his part, however one-sided it might have been. That proved a sobering thought. In the lands between, the world wasn't always black or white, but shades of grey. He didn't know what to do with grey. A tiny twinge of pity tweaked his heart as he reluctantly looked away from his new great rune and back to Morgott's barely breathing body. It must be a terrible thing to be alone in this world. Without love, without family, without anything to call your own. He'd lived a life like that once. It wasn't a fate he'd wish upon his worst enemy. Good riddance to bad rubbish, Lansac spat at Morgott's feet. May he never darken our door again. Stop that. He stilled her with a glower bordering on a glare. He fought well, don't dishonour him. He expected some semblance of resistance. Instead, she folded like a house of cards. Stranger still, she nuzzled his neck. As you say, my mate. Greyroll grinned and made a noise reminiscent of a cracked whip. Naruto commiserated with her. Geez, dragons really were submissive once you beat them down, weren't they? He was beginning to think Greyroll was the outlier there, but then again, she wasn't technically an ancient dragon now, was she? His foot caught something as he stepped away, causing him to look down. Huh! Morgott's sword. Yoink. He hefted it, considering the shimmering blade and its worn, weathered handle. It shrunk to fit his grasp, much like other weapons he'd claimed. Curious. For all its lack of ornamentation, it was still a fine blade. Light and slender, all things considered. More suited to slashing than smashing, unlike Radahn's swords, but still tool-worthy of preserving. Humming to himself, he stowed it across his back. Another fine weapon for his collection. Arsenal. Definitely meant arsenal. He certainly wasn't collecting boss weapons like a certain four-armed mechanical swordsman who shall not be named. No siree, not he. A faint shimmer of blue light shivered behind him, interrupting his short-lived weapon. Well done. Melina's soft praise, both distracted, warmed his soul like no other. You defeated him handily. He couldn't help but preen a little that. It was the little things, you know. A thought occurred to him then. I thought you wandered off. And she had shortly after they'd reached the capital. Something about finding her own way for a bit, whatever that meant. Maybe she'd found what she was looking for and returned. Perhaps not. Didn't matter now, he supposed. She looked perfectly pleased with herself, which meant things hadn't changed. I found what I sought. A blonde brow rose. Are you going to tell me what that was? Her smile was just a shade shy of sad as she turned away. In due time. Going to be stubborn, was she? Fine. He looked back to the brittle bark of the Erd tree, considering it intently. Tarnist, thou art but a fool. The Erd tree wards off all who dare approach. Morgott's words came back to haunt him in a raspy laugh. Thy deeds shall be met with failure just as I. We are, all of us, forsaken. A muscle jumped in his jaw. We'll just see about that. By all means, Greyroll licked her lips. Enter the Erd Tree and tear it apart. Lanciax and I shall await your triumphant return. We will. The other dragon balked at her, but I wanted to see inside. I said we shall wait. She bit her lip and looked away with a scowl. As you wish. But do not listen to anything the tree says. Melina looked like she wanted to say something to that effect, but didn't. More secrets? A truth she had only just realized. Or perhaps something altogether worse? Who could say? There would be time aplenty to ponder that later. For now he had a job to do, a quest to finish, a world to save. 2 great runes remained by Renala's reckoning, but did he really need them? The Erd Tree was right there. Melina grabbed at his arm. There is something I must tell you. The Erd Tree will be dealt with in a second, he muttered. He shrugged her off and stomped up the steps leading to the tree, taking them 2 at a time in his haste to reach it. More than he thought. The world grew darker as the tree enveloped him fully, swallowing even the sunlight itself. Yet still he pressed on, as the brittle bark loomed high overhead. The great runes in his body sensed the presence of the Elden Ring and shone in brilliant harmony, and the rune ring on his finger pulsed. He glanced at them and kept walking, heart in his throat, relentless in his advance, until at last he saw it. Perhaps that wasn't quite right. No, not it, them. Thorns. A bristling wall of them had grown out the Erd Tree, barring his path to the fog beyond. They seemed to thicken in his presence, firming up with an energy that hadn't been there before. He paused before them, gave them a brief inspection, thumbed his chin and nodded once. All right. Obstacle in his path. He could think of an easy way to deal with this. Aura! His fist swung back and slammed into the prickly barrier. The Erd Tree shook from top to bottom, but held. Yet the fact that it shook at all was a victory. Again, he whirled, wondering where the voice had come from. It sounded so familiar, and yet no one was there. Not a soul. He was alone. And yet he was certain he'd heard something. No, someone. So who? Please. Meh. Screw it. Gonna be difficult, eh? He pushed a bit of chakra to his fist and wound up for another punch. Brambles groaned under his fist. Harder! The voice came on a second time, stronger now. He drew strength from it. Brambles burst beneath his fist, shattering like so much stone. Break already! A third and final blow rang the Erd Tree, ringing it like a gong. The sound rattled his teeth, rumbled in his ears, reverberated through his very soul. The thorns lashed out, grabbing a hold of his wrist. And then he heard it clearly. At last, you have found me. A woman's voice caressed his ears, little more than a threadbare gasp. I bid you welcome, my knight, though the hour is early. You are still missing 3 great runes. 3? Not 2? Who was he missing? Why have you come? He paused on the verge of slugging the tree again. Knight? Yes. He heard a faint note of whimsy in the woman's words. You are mine. Have you forgotten? His hand ached like he'd thrust it into a fire. He looked down and found his rune ring glowing almost blindingly bright. You do not remember your mission. It was not a question, despite the laconic phrasing behind it. Your promise to me. How you came to be here in the lands between. I don't. He floundered, failing for an answer and finding none. Even now he didn't remember how he'd come to the lands between. Neither did Kurama. He'd assumed there had been a seal of some sort involved, or a jutsu gone wrong. In truth, he hadn't thought much of it. He'd just woken up here, you know? He had put it out of his mind at the time, thinking little of it. After all, this wasn't the first time he'd awakened to find himself somewhere new. Unfortunate. He heard the faint click of a tongue. Then again, crossing the barrier between worlds is no meager feat. Memory loss seems a small side effect by comparison. You could have been turned inside out, and then where would we be? I suppose we should both count our blessings. Lady, what the actual hell? He flung up an arm, only for the brambles to hold tighter. You're not making any sense. You are confused. Understandable. If you cannot remember, then I shall fill in the gaps. A barrage of sights and sounds flooded his mind, bringing with them vaguely familiar images. Allow me to explain. A fresh rush of memories hit him. The village gates. A blonde woman garbed in black striding through them. I reached out to your... what is you call them in your land? Fire Shadow? Is that the word? Your leader. I spoke to them via proxy. A request was made. Payment was given. Services rendered in exchange. You accepted the mission and insisted upon doing so alone. I asked for a savior, a champion, a hero. You agreed without a second thought, although you do not remember. I was assured that you were quite strong. Strong enough to leave your village behind and take ship, venture to a distant land, fall between worlds, and survive. Who are you? That's the question, isn't it? Broken, bitter laughter filled his mind. My mind has been fractured by captivity. I have so many names I no longer remember them all. As many titles as there are stars in the sky. I am a mother, a failure, a goddess, but you may know me as Marika. A shiver shot down his spine. I have been trapped here for centuries. The captive woman rambled on. Eons, millennia, perhaps more. Time no longer has any meaning for me. You cannot comprehend how happy I am to see you again. She sounded strangely sad now as she came to the end of her tale. I carved off a piece of myself, a fragment, as it were, one whose sole purpose was to bring you here, across the fog, to the lands between. She succeeded beyond my wildest dreams and became the ring you now wear, tethering you to this realm, though the effort cost her life. And so I made another, a simpler soul. My last daughter. You know her as Melina. He stilled. I do know her. Indeed you do. Your bond runs deeper than I had hoped. A wry note of amusement entered her voice. She has brought you here to me, to this moment, to do what no other cannot, though she has yet to burn herself. But you must. He had a feeling he knew where this was going. She wanted to be saved, right? Really? He thought so. He was wrong. Kill me. He recoiled in disbelief, tugging the thorns back with him. You want to run that by me again? Slay me, end me, snuff out my life like a blow candle. Her weathered voice rose in exasperation. How obvious must I make this? I wish to die. Naruto gnashed his teeth. I heard that, but I'm wondering why. You can't just expect me to walk up and kill you out of the blue without a damn good reason. Listen, you stubborn shinobi. She snapped at him with a sudden bout of vitriol, cutting his diatribe painfully short. Here is your reason. With my death, the greater will and its wretched Elden beast shall no longer have a stranglehold on this world. It has retreated for now, but it will soon return, and when it does, the lands between must have a strong ruler to face it. For that to happen, I must perish. Only you can gather the great runes and end my wretched existence. Only you could thrive in a broken land such as this. Only you would refuse to give up, and likewise, only you can take my place. A muscle jumped in his jaw. You're right about one thing. And what is that? She sounded so hopeful for her own death. It hurt. I don't give up. He spat the words at her. Not ever. I'm not killing you. Then thou art a fool. He laughed. Morgott called me the same, but here I am. What do you intend then, A waspish note entered the Queen's disembodied voice. To save me? I cannot be saved. There is no redemption for one such as me. My schemes have seen the lands between brought low and my family shattered. All the while the outer gods squabble amongst themselves. This is my fault. I deserve nothing less than death. Who decided that? He slugged the wall again. His great runes blazed in defiance. The thorns buckled with a ponderous cry. Another voice came on, and this didn't belong to Marika. Stop! It hurts! Kurama swore softly in his head. Oh, bugger! Forgot about her. Her? He winced. Right. He was hurting the Erd tree, wasn't he? But what choice did he have? The thought shamed him. Sorry, he muttered. I'll be quick. A flick of the wrist and a touch of Kurama's chakra sharpened his fingernails to claws. He raked them across the thorns. They peeled back under his attack, only to regrow in an instant. They grabbed at him, constricting his arms and legs, yet still he fought his way through, bit by bit, step by step. Enough! A man's low baritone filled his mind. You cannot pass, Marika sighed. Radagon, be reasonable. He's going to get in one way or another. Just let him end me. The man's voice scoffed. I would sooner let this body of mine rot than let one such as he enter the Erd tree. He cannot pass. Thy mind was always rotten, foolish leal hound. Enough. Naruto felt the weight of the second voice settled upon his shoulders, pushing down like a physical force. You shall not pass. His eyes snapped red and his body blazed gold as he drew upon Kurama's chakra. Bite me! A frustrated snarl tore out of him, his temper breaking at last. I do what I want. He tried to push through, and for a single glorious instant succeeded, breaking through to the golden fog beyond. It felt strange, as though Part of it wanted to welcome him, while two other forces strove to push him out. Must be this Radagon and the Greater Will. Even bound and encumbered and weary as he was, fighting on three fronts, he managed to overpower them. The Erd Tree wasn't happy about that. He could feel its terror, a nameless dread he didn't understand. For a moment the fog cleared and he beheld a woman in the distance, a broken blonde hanging in the air against the gilded glowing bark, arms nailed to a cross made of runes. A crimson spear lay thrust through her torso, seemingly for no other reason than sheer spite. It took him a moment to behold her, and, in that instant, Marika shifted to regard him. Belatedly he realized she was missing an eye. Someone had caved her skull in, fracturing her very body, and oh, geez, he could see her. Oh, no! Her head snapped up suddenly as she spoke. The word was a rasp, filled with so much fear that hadn't been there prior. You're too late, it's here. You aren't ready. Flee! Don't let it see you. He took a step forward, still grappling with the thorny web. Another? Yet a third now. You dare trespass here? An eldritch howl assaulted his ears. Be gone. Reality reasserted itself in a rush, and he found himself ripped backwards, not by the thorns, but by sheer force of will. Whatever it was, the greater will proved powerful enough to overwhelm him for an instant. Battling with the briar of barbs as he was, it was enough. His concentration broke, shattered like so much glass, then he was gone, rocketing out the tree to hit the ground back first. Momentum was most kind. He tumbled down the stairwell, head striking every step on the way down before finally skidding to a halt. He closed his eyes and slammed a frustrated fist into the floor, cracking it. So close! He'd been so close! Maybe he really did need those other 3 great runes. Melina was waiting for him at the Shard of Grace when he opened his eyes, gazing down at his sprawled form. I take it things did not go well. Nope. He massaged the back of his skull with a rueful sigh, grimacing furiously. They did not. Her smile thinned. Allow me a moment to converse with you then. Sure, why not? You got any plans? As a matter of fact, yes. He sat up beside the Shard of Grace and she mirrored him gracefully before daring to continue. You were unable to enter the Erd Tree? No. Prevented by the mantle of barbs. The thorns are impenetrable, even for you, a husk of the Erdtress being that spurns all that exists without. Suspicion reared its ugly head in his heart. You knew this would happen, didn't you? I suspected. She countered all too smoothly, and he realized she'd been preparing this argument for quite some time, but I wasn't certain. Now I am. Now the only way to stand before the Elden Ring and become the Elden Lord is to pass the thorns. My purpose serves to aid in that very act. When he didn't shout her down, she dared to barrel on. So I'd like you to undertake a new journey, alone, with me, to the flame of ruin, far above the clouds, upon the snowy mountaintop of the giants. There, I can set the Erd Tree aflame and guide you down the path to becoming Elden Lord. She reached out and pressed a medallion into his hands. Here, my lord. You will need this for your journey. Naruto tucked the medallion away in his pouch and shook his head. No. Disbelief flashed across her face. No? It means no. He stood and paced towards Lanciax and Greyroll. I'll find another way. It is the only way. The kindling maiden gathered up her skirts and raced after him. How can you not understand this? We'll just see about that. He turned back to the tree with a glower. I'm not above blasting this thing with a Bijudama if I have to. You won't succeed. But that's not my plan. He shook his head. The Erd Tree wants to live, even if Marika doesn't. I'm doing this my way. Marika! She recoiled, a little shocked. You spoke with her? I did. He gave her a disappointed look. Your mother. Oh, and how she flinched when he said that. Wanted you to die, too. Even more reason for me to say no. Naruto. Melina! He snarled and rounded on her, headbutting her forehead with such force that she yelped. I've watched comrades sacrifice themselves before. I've seen people die right in front of me. People who should have lived. I've already had one person ask me to let them die today. Not again. Never again. She stepped backward, rubbing her temples and looking livid. Of all the foolish, reckless, arrogant, then what do you intend? Naruto looked past her to the ruined city of Leyndell. Morgott was beaten, but that didn't make the capital worthless. On the contrary, it was the very heart of the lands between. Here one could feel the very pulse of the land itself. See both to the north, south, east, and of course, the west. You could hold a place like this with less than 100 warriors. Lucky for him, then, that he was an army unto himself. An idea dawned, a mad, reckless scheme. But reckless was what he did. "I'm taking the city." His remark evoked several reactions from his companions. Greyroll hummed and gazed upon him with half-lidded eyes, looking like she wanted nothing more than to jump him then and there. Lanciax tilted her head in confusion, not quite comprehending what he intended, but didn't appear to oppose him all the same. Melina did neither of those things. She flung up her hands with an aggravated shout. "Have you lost your mind?" On the contrary. Naruto felt something harden deep inside his chest. "I've found it." Resolve reaffirmed, he looked to Lansax. "Go find Rani and Renala. Bring them here." She didn't hesitate. Perhaps she knew what she intended, perhaps not. A quick step in, a searing kiss, and she was gone, winging away across the sky. Not entirely satisfied, he turned to face Gweriel. "Go the round table hold. Fetch our friends. Every one of them." The Mother of Dragons blinked, then grinned. "Finally, you take charge. It's about time." Melina balked, cottoning on at last. "All of them?" He smirked. "All of them." Chapter 26. At least I know what I'm fighting for, while you're fighting to be known. You claim you're so much wiser, yet you choose to die alone. "You're alone!" Tilda a reference. This is my goodbye. And so they gathered together. From the east and the west they came, from the north and the south, and everywhere in between. All the allies he'd currently gathered in the lands. He couldn't hope to count them all. It was humbling. He hadn't quite realized just how many lives he'd touched, saved, and otherwise altered until today. He'd been so fixated on bulling forward, saving everyone within arm's reach, be it via his own hands or that of a shadow clone, that he'd never stopped to realize just how good he was doing. He did now. The moment his small army of allies arrived in Leyndell, they went to work. Morgott, still slumbering from, was shuffled out of sight, but not necessary out of mind. They left the old omen in comfortable quarters, and subsequently placed him under a guard of no less than 7 shadow clones to make certain he stayed there should he stir. Meanwhile, a serviceable facsimile of the Round Table was dragged out of storage from the city's cellars and planted beneath the Erd tree, with chairs for all. Nor did surprises stop there. Greyroll at least he had been prepared for, because he knew how she acted, and to a lesser extent Lancer. Not so the others. Renala and Rani brought the full might of a conquered Raya Lucaria with them. Together, mother and daughter conjured a series of beautiful barriers to protect their little enclave. Loretta commanded a company of wolf-riding archers from the far north to serve as nimble scouts for the conflict ahead. Those alone were worth their weight in gold. Not only could they cover great distances and report back quickly, but it meant he needn't waste more shadow clones on ranging parties far afield. Nephili proved her worth and brought forth a brigade of barbarians from a place she would only refer to as the Badlands. There could be no finer shock troops, she assured him, and looking at the hardened men and women, he was tempted to believe her. A few of them looked like they could stand up to Blade, whom he had nothing but praise for. Theralina brought little combat power to the table, but she did manage to wrangle a number of clerics under her command. They wouldn't lack for healing going forward. And speaking of Golden Order forces, the timely return of the now quite outspoken Trish brought a number of the city's tree sentinels to their side, another unexpected boon he hadn't anticipated. On the other side of the spectrum, Tanith and Zorias he still preferred calling the latter Raya, despite the Lamia's newfound confidence and appearance offered the remaining recusants of the Volcano Manor, an admittedly eclectic bunch under his command. There were no finer assassins than these. Better to have them under his command than without. And then there were other more amusing allies he hadn't encountered firsthand, but stumbled upon by sheer chance. Most came willingly. Others were otherwise brought subjugated by his own entourage without him realizing it. So many names to remember. It was in such a way that he finally met Selen the Sorceress, Kenneth Haight, a rather shifty-looking fellow known as Patches, and a curiously blind maiden named Irina who seemed to know him despite the fact that he'd never met her. She even asked why he'd shaved his beard. That question would mean something later. He just didn't realize it at the time. There were others too, with whom he was at least peripherally acquainted. BOC the Seamster, Alexander the Warrior Jar, the list went on and on. Millicent, meanwhile, commanded no force of her own, but she didn't need to. With the waterfowl dance, his blade was an army unto herself, even if she was strangely silent. Had she not recovered? He didn't like that look in her eye. Might need to have a word with her sooner rather than later once this was done. Still, he'd been quite serious when he told Melina they would take Lendel. There was no other path forward, so they took the city. At the end of the day, the capital had less than 100 proper knights still defending her, alongside an assortment of pages, scribes, and other creatures. They could fend off the occasional tarnished on a good day, even hold the walls in a pinch, but against a concentrated force of battle-hardened shadow clones accompanied by warriors, sorcerers, and assassins. The outcome was never in question. It was entirely too entertaining to cut loose with his allies and run roughshod over their enemies. Most of the knights and pages surrendered. Some even turned their cloaks to serve them. Those who refused were cast into the dungeons. Death was rather unreliable in the lands between, after all. Executions weren't a sustainable system, and besides, he wasn't here to butcher everyone his path, no matter how much that might expedite things. So, yes, all in all, they brought Lendel under their control in relatively short order. All that remained were the sewers, something they'd save for a later date, which left him to mingle with the rest of his allies before they decided what in blazes to do with the Erd tree. It was there that things became complicated. Much to his surprise, Naruto eventually found a stray shadow clone, lingering among his erstwhile allies, a decidedly exhausted-looking one at that. Poor bastard had lost his headbands somewhere at some point, and much of his clothes besides. He wore little more than tattered rags, his hair messy and unkempt. He'd even begun to grow something of a bristly beard. Huh? He hadn't even realized a shadow clone could do that. Intrigued by such a development, alongside poor bastard's dishevelled appearance and his world-weary expression, of course, he approached him next. "And where have you been, buddy?" "Hey, boss." His doppelganger slumped against a wall and granted him a tired grin before replying further. "Would you believe me if I said places?" Naruto crossed both arms before his chest and tapped a foot. He wasn't used to his boys being this snarky. "Places, eh? And what were you doing in these places?" A shrug. "Stuff." "I see." He thumbed his chin with a frown, mildly annoyed by the evasive answer. "What kind of stuff?" The clone laughed nervously and looked away. "Important stuff." Naruto began to crack his knuckles. All right, I'll talk." His counterpart raised both hands to ward him off. "Don't pull a Sakura on me." "Hop to it, then." "Look, it's a long story and it'll take me too long to explain the normal way." His other half looked away, idly scratching the back of his head. "Better to let my memories do the talking. Besides, I don't have much time left anyway." He looked back his way and belatedly he realized just how blank those blue eyes looked, glassy and drained. "I've finally hit my limit, boss, and I've been apart from you for too long. Take care of her, will you? I don't think she even knows I'm a clone." Naruto frowned at his exhausted shadow clone. "Take care of who?" A wink was his reward, because the bastard wanted to be cryptic. "Like I said, you'll see. You're talking like you're dying or something." "Or something." His clone rasped a laugh. "My experiences, my memories, my emotions will live on in you." "Oi!" He grabbed him by the arm, mildly concerned by its reticence. "You're starting to worry me. Just what in blazes did you get up to while I was gone?" "I can give you more chakra if you need." His doppelganger didn't answer. His eyes had already gone dull. He crumbled in his grasp and turned to so much smoke. And the very moment he did, memories rushed in. When the clone popped, that last little sliver of chakra it possessed came rushing back, bringing with it months of experience. And emotions? So many emotions! He saw all the clone had done, all it had seen, all it had experienced and said. It wasn't a seamless transition, not by far. One moment his psyche stood upon solid ground, in the next he found himself swamped by a flood of memories. He tried to rally against them, to shove them back and out as he sought to sift through the myriad mass in which he was submerged. In the end, it was the little things that added up. The laughter of a gentle maiden, the touch of a hand in his, the warm, fuzzy feeling he experienced as he sat beside her and shared a meal with her. Oh, and there, above it all, a name. Irina. "No, I don't want these memories." "Irina? This is his life, not mine." "I don't deserve—" "Irina!" She was in his head now. He knew who she was and precisely why his doppelganger had taken pity on her when they'd first met. It was all there in his head, much to his chagrin, tinged with the rampaging memories and emotions of the clone who had dedicated the very last bit of its chakra to bring her here. It was as if he'd lived every moment, every step, as though he'd been there in person. From a purely logical standpoint, one might wonder why he'd gone to such lengths for her. Irina had limited combat potential, though her old man apparently commanded a castle down on the Weeping Peninsula and knew only a few spells for her own personal protection. She wasn't a frontline fighter, or a scout, or even a proper sorceress. It didn't bother him. Possessing the knowledge of his doppelganger, he knew full well that wasn't the reason he saved her. Because, you see, Irina was good, innocent. Dare he say pure? She'd wished only to be reunited with her father, and even afterward hadn't dared hope for anything else with him beyond a quiet chat or holding hands under Edgar's watchful eye. He'd refused to let the lands between gobble her up on the roadside back then, and he absolutely refused to do so now. But the question remained, what to do with her? Bah! He already knew the answer. It was obvious. Must protect at all costs. Naruto slumped against the wall with a soft sigh and cursed his clone. You cheeky bastard. Now I gotta do something. I can't leave that poor girl alone. Just 0.0. Naruto was still reeling from those memories an hour later when everyone sat before the Erd tree. Bringing everyone together had been the easy part. All it took was an ask on his part. Getting them to agree, not so much. Everyone had their own opinions, after all. Some more vocal than others, of course. Heretic! Theralina thrust a finger at Melina across the table. What you are suggesting is madness. The Erd tree is sacred, Sarkhan sacked. To even entertain the notion of burning it is a sin. Melina looked to her with an irritated scowl. And what would you know of it? I know such a thing as sacrilege. The healing maiden sprang to her feet. If you think I shall allow this, then you are truly mad. Melina mirrored her. I'll show you mad. Hey, hey! Naruto flitted between the duo before they could come to blows. Calm down. Greyroll and Lanciax chortled softly, content to let chaos take the table as he forced the bickering maidens apart. Renala heaved a sigh from where she sat. Do behave yourselves. We've come here to talk, not to fight. Rani sniffed in haughty disagreement. Speak for yourself, mother. Millicent nudged his side with her elbow, a silent sign of solidarity. But why wasn't she speaking? He briefly felt the need to spirit her away, find a bed and cuddle up with her. But no. There was a time and a place for that, and it wasn't here, no matter how much he might wish otherwise. He flicked her a quick grateful look and reluctantly turned his gaze back to the others. Even so, Nephili was saying something, responding to a question he hadn't heard while he'd been distracted. Just chop the damn thing down. We have a small army here. Why not make use of it? And how do you intend to do that? Latenna chided her gently. It would take years to cut it apart. Our weapons would blunt long before the bark ever did. The barbarian bit her lip and settled down with a mulish look. At least I'm offering ideas. I don't hear the rest of you coming up with anything. She's got a point. Blade snorted in mild annoyance. Still, that's a mighty tall tree to chop down. Better to burn it and be done with it. Theralina absolutely twitched. Such was her ire. He thought she might actually attack the half-wolf. I shall not allow— Yes, we know how you feel about this, Theralina. Be quiet and let the adults talk. You're not listening. This never would have happened if Lord Rykard was still here. Renala swooped in like a mother hawk. Whatever happened to him, dear Tanith? Oh yes. He challenged Naruto and died. Leave the dead to their rest. The living have work to do. And speaking of the dead, why is that witch here? Theralina recovered and shot a glare Rani's way. I was under the impression only friends were welcome here. The Lunar Princess paid her all the care one would a small mouse, which is to say none. Silence, churl. Your betters are speaking. This, from the woman who caused the shattering. Silence reigned, if only for a moment. Can we not simply blast our way through the thorns? Those words came from Trish. It was the most he'd heard from her since he'd healed her voice. Surely we haven't enough strength to do that, at least. Greyroll chortled. We already tried. They're surprisingly sturdy. Then why don't we— That won't work! We should. On and on it went. No one could agree. Naruto closed his eyes and let their words wash over him. He knew Theralina would be one of the few to resist such a plan, but he hadn't expected everyone to be quite so vocal. No one else seemed to oppose the idea of bypassing the Erd tree, save Theralina. It was merely a matter of how. Zoraya's was all for burning it, others like Nefili proposed simply cutting it down, while yet more like Trish were content to agree with whatever he suggested. Which didn't help, because he'd called this council to get ideas, not have everyone agree with him. Enough! Melina slammed a fist down on the table, breaking the impasse. If none of you will see sense, then there is no point in this. Her piece said, she left in a huff. Naruto let her. Perhaps she had a point. Tempers were running high and weapons higher. He heaved a heavy sigh, raised an arm and brought it crashing down on the table. Let's break for lunch. 0.0. Rhea found him sulking some time later. He'd claimed Marika's bedchambers for himself while everyone cooled their heads. It wasn't particularly comfortable, but it was close enough to the Erd tree that he needn't worry about missing anything. Even from here he could hear more than a few raised voices. The arguments continued apace without him, it seemed. But not Rhea. Rather than bicker with her grandmother, mother, or anyone else, she sought him out. Honestly, she was such a sweetheart. He really didn't deserve her company. Still, Misery loved company, and he was hardly about to turn her away. Sure, why not? He chuckled into his palms as the young Lamia slithered up to his bed. Already had the Irina bombshell dropped on me. Guileless green eyes blinked at him. Irina? He told Rhea about the blind girl in no uncertain terms. She hadn't been present at today's council, but had instead retired to the guest rooms shortly before the discussion began. He knew where she was, mind you. He could sense her, and her father 3 doors down. Well enough, but he didn't know what to say to any of them. When he confessed as much to Rhea, she fell silent. Her tail flicked lazily before curling around his left leg. It was his one and only warning. Well, that the building bundle of emotion he'd been sensing for the better part of the last 5 minutes now. Weary as he wasn't quite quick enough to do anything about it before, yoink! Rhea ripped him off his feet, pinned him down, and pressed her lips to his. She drew back, pale face redder than a rose. That was my first kiss, she informed him primly. Just thought you should know. She promptly gave him her second and third, followed by her fourth, then fifth and sixth for good measure, until his world went dizzy and he was left reeling for air. You don't get to break now. Her voice was soft, but he didn't miss the steely undercurrent lurking beneath. Not now, not after all you've done. We need you. I need you. And if that means I have to kiss you silly, I will. Now go get your affairs in order and talk to those poor girls. He quirked a blonde brow at her. I don't suppose we could just lay here a while. Rhea pinched his arm and stared. Naruto, get. Naruto got. 0.0. Irina was blind. Oh yes, quite so, really. Try as she might, she couldn't see a thing. It was sad fact of life, a facet she had resigned herself to ever since she was small. And she had made peace with it. Really, she had. True, there were times when she was not best pleased with her handicap, but she had learned to live despite it, no, in spite of it. In her blindness, she had developed her other senses to compensate. She'd quite the keen sense of smell for one, and her sense of touch was nigh on unparalleled within the lands between. Why, she could identify someone merely by touching the calluses on their hands, and that was to say nothing of her hearing. She could detect the slightest of vibrations, the quietest of pin drops. Father called it a blessing, even if wasn't true sight. That blessing, it was one of the reasons she hadn't bumbled off a cliff before now. Sometimes, when it rained, she could almost see. It was not true sight, not really, but her ears painted a better picture for her than useless eyes ever could. And yet, now more than ever, she found herself wishing she could see. Her champion had vanished a few hours ago, leaving her in her lovely new quarters and asking her to wait. She'd been a good girl and done as he asked, contenting herself with all the strange new sounds in this broken capital of light. And in time he returned to her. She heard his footsteps a mile away long before he made himself known. Even then she pretended to be surprised for his sake. There you are. She stood carefully and sketched a clumsy curtsy his way. How did it go? It went. She heard him sigh before his footsteps drew closer. Irina reached out to find his face and let her. So you're not done then? That's a simple way of seeing it. He must have realized what he said, because he coughed. Sorry, I didn't mean. She patted his face, tracing his whiskers with both hands. You have nothing to be sorry for. I'd like to do something for you. He seemed nervous, anxious. She wondered why. Are you going to try and heal me again? A small, sad little smile lifted her lips. It didn't work the last 2 times, remember? It didn't. For some reason, that only seemed to embolden him. Well, third time's the charm. Heat speared through her face. It truly was touching, how much he cared for her. And so she let him touch her again, felt him lay both hands on either side of her head, thumbs cupping her face just below her ears. She didn't think he would succeed, but it was clear that he wanted to try, if nothing else. His forehead touched hers a moment later, as he muttered something under his breath, and then pain, fire in her face, terror, torment, travesty. 1,000 stinging needles of sensation invaded her numb eyes, and she squirmed in her grasp, voice rising in a keening whine. Realization blunted her agony for a moment as she reeled. That was why he'd held her, to keep her still. The darkness began to recede, and for the first time in years she saw, right up until something snatched her up and away, and all the light died. With neither word nor warning, she found herself inky dark, senses laid bare, unable to make heads or tails of her surroundings. No, that wasn't quite right. As she looked about herself, she found not the capital, but a void in its place, a towering, empty space that seared her senses and granted her sight in equal measure. Tongues of hungry flame rose from the ground, ascending into the air like so many yellow streamers. As she looked on aghast, they formed something. There was a presence. It loomed before her, a nebulous mass of twisted yellow flame among the stars, seething with frenzy. "Why do you still live?" it asked of her. She recoiled from it. What? Why ask me that? You, who were never meant to have that body. It addressed her with utter scorn. You who were meant to die. Surrender your flesh to Hyeta and let the world be cleansed in flame. No. She reeled back from a fire, not quite comprehending it, but feeling fearful of its flames all the same. This is my body I want. The flames pushed in, reaching for her, trying to push into her. You have no say in the matter. Chaos shall take the world. Yeah, hard pass. A hand settled on her shoulder and she jolted. Naruto stood beside her, shining like the sun. No, that wasn't quite right. He was the sun. His very body burned like the ugly fire before her, but brighter, more pure. Simple and clean. His presence chased the darkness of the void away and empowered her, kept the fire from reaching into her. With one arm, he tucked her into his side. With the other, he reached up and thrust a hand up at the yellow fire, palm up, fingers splayed. I figured you were a little like me, connected to something greater than yourself. But this ain't a biju. He squinted up at the roiling mass of fire, which had begun to resolve itself into the guise of a 3-fingered hand, and sneered at it in return. This is a biju. It means tailed beast. Filthy usurper. A great golden fox loomed over him. And from this, the truest of flames, a mighty giant fox was born. I don't care who you are, or what you are. He scowled up Outer God and its emissary. This world has no need of your wisdom or your light. Go back to the shadow. The fox roared above, and then there was true light. Irina shielded her face with one arm and saw Naruto fully in the light of the rising sun for the first time. Irina's heart hitched, her throat closed, her eyes stung with tears for the first time in years. Blinking through blurry eyes that had never once beheld another, she finally saw her savior, and, well, oh mine. Her gaze widened even as her heart leaped into her throat. Oh, you're well fit, aren't you? Naruto, her champion barked a sad little laugh. You don't look half bad yourself. There was an undercurrent of sorrow in his words. A mourning, or perhaps a longing. That would simply not do. If he was sad, then there was only one thing for it. There was but one thing she could offer her champion, inexperienced though she was. She leaned up, stood on the very tips of her toes, and kissed him. Naruto immediately placed both hands on her shoulders and took a step backward. Her heart went with him. No, not like this. He couldn't just deny her after all they had been through. I'm not saying no. He rallied quickly, as though sensing that very emotion. Perhaps he could. Hadn't he mentioned it before? I remember you. He pulled her close, buried his head in her hair, and chuckled softly. You mean a great deal to me. There it was again, the faintest twinge in his voice just then, something she couldn't quite quantify. It took her a moment to understand what it was. She could sense him more clearly than before, and... it took her a moment to understand. He wasn't a shadow clone. All this time she'd been travelling with a doppelganger. A copy, a mere facsimile of the genuine article who stood before her. What of it? Naruto was Naruto. He meant the world to her, flesh and blood or no. Even now he sought to preserve her honor when she would have happily thrown herself into his lap just to keep him. I want to talk with you more. But he was speaking and she must attend. Get to know you more. We have a lifetime ahead of us, you know. Let's not rush into things. But you love others too, she whispered softly, words nearly lost on the wind. Like Melina. I do. He nodded without hesitation. I wish I could say sorry for that, but I'm not. That should have hurt more than it did. Thankfully, the pain was tempered by understanding. He had many redeeming qualities. He was kind, brave, and confident. Not only willing to fight for what he believed in, but quite willing to help any and all he encountered along the way. Any woman in the lands between would lucky to have him as their paramour. She suspected he had more than a few admirers waiting in the wings. She should have known others would have found him an attractive partner for more than looks alone. After all, only just regained her eyes, and if she hadn't been smitten with him before she certainly was now. She tried to rally, faltered and pinched her arm until the pain broke through her barriers. May I be so bold as to offer a counterpoint? I mean, I don't see why not. Irina stepped into him, pressed her head to his chest and wrapped her arms around his waist. Thank you. That got a baffled blink out of him. For finding me, she elaborated. For saving me. You're a good person, my champion. Naruto warbled a little at that. Little did she know those were the very words he'd been longing to hear, words few had said to him. You don't know that. Irina could tell by the tone of his voice that he was fighting a war against his own emotions. You don't know me? Not really? Of course I do. Unwilling to look at him without blushing, she instead buried her head in his armored jacket and took a deep breath. You're exactly as I remember. He was so warm she couldn't help but nuzzle him. Maybe a little less scruffy, that's all. And now you've saved me from some fell god that wanted to burn the world. What is that if not courtship? If my father has a problem with our relationship, then he can stuff it. He laughed and squeezed her back. The very moment he did, she looked him square in the eye. Now go have a word with Melina before she does something foolish. 0.0, Melina drifted. Her feet carried her away from the raised voices of Naruto's so-called sea. She knew she was welcome at the council in theory, but she simply couldn't bear to be there after that last argument. Wandering aimlessly through the empty halls of Lendl brought her little solace, only distractions. She could hear voices here, see spectres of past, of a life she had not lived. Here she saw Radan tending to a long-since-dead garden, long since overgrown by weeds. There she espied Rykard balancing a small child on his knee as he read from an old, tattered book of fairy tales. She glimpsed the ghost of Godwyn walking around the corner talking to a woman in dark robes. Rani's shade stalked past her, arguing with a much younger blade about some prank or another. Michaela sat upon a nearby windowsill, chin in hand, watching Millennia practice her blade work in the yard below. She stumbled upon more of such scenes the deeper she went into the castle, ghosts of the pasts that never once seemed to see her. A younger version of Marika Mother walked right through her, a strange veil clutched tight in one hand and her hammer in another. Almost immediately thereafter, the Eternal Queen donned the veil and vanished in a shower of golden light. Radagon danced with Renala beneath a tree that had withered away to a desiccated husk. Godfrey marched off to war, Serosh snarling upon his back. For a moment he paused and almost seemed to notice her. Melina kept walking, head down. It felt like she was stumbling into their past, a wayward stranger peeking through time. The experience was as haunting as it was humbling and humiliating. What was she to do now? Naruto had usurped the medallion from her and would not allow her to fulfill her purpose. It mattered not if she made the journey to the mountaintops of the giants alone. She needed him. He had to take her there, else she could not set the Erd Tree aflame. Nor could she simply for a secondary contract with another tarnished. No one else had as many great runes as he. No one else was fit to become Elden Lord. What was she to do? A glimmer of light caught her eye, shadows stirring in the dusty gloom. She whirled, drawing her dagger. Who goes there? Who do you think? Naruto stepped out behind a rusted stand of armor, hands up. I'm here to talk. She lifted her chin and sniffed angrily. We have nothing to discuss. You clearly don't value a single word I have to say. He sighed and pinched the bridge of his nose. What do you want from me, Melina? To let you die? Nope. He shook his head. Ain't gonna happen. But I said no. His hands slashed through the air between them, kicking up a breeze. Next question. Why do you go to such lengths for me? Can't you see the only way, the reliable way, is to let me go? She expected rage, anger. Naruto never gave it to her. He just tilted his head and smiled at her, that sad little smile that broke her heat. Because I love you, you silly girl. 7 little words, and yet they set her blood ablaze as no flame ever could. There, I said it. Is that what you want to hear? He dared a step forward, only to pause as she shrank back. Because I do. I love you. He spread his arms wide, and for a moment his body almost seemed to shimmer gold in the low light. You are loved, no matter what you might think. Why else would I do all this for you? Melina winced. He'd put up with so much for her with barely a word of complaint, yes, but to hear the words. But it's clear that you don't trust me, so the feeling doesn't appear to be mutual. It was. How could he say such a thing? I do trust you, foolish tarnished. Do you? His words were a searing knife cutting through her confidence like so much butter. You've got a funny way of showing it. I have shown it time and time again. She kicked at his leg. Despite you recklessly rushing ahead into battle after battle and bedding nearly every woman you come across. Naruto didn't rise to her bait. He never did, no matter how hard she tried to get a rise out of him. I know you didn't mean that. You don't know me, she snapped at him. Not what I am, nor what I am meant to do. At least I know what I'm fighting for, while you're fighting to be known. He stepped to her, not raising his voice, not once. Since you claim you're so much wiser, why do you want to die alone? The words were a slap in her face, and she found herself taking a step back despite them. Alone. She thought someone would at least mourn her passing. I never said... You're alone, Melina. Naruto didn't chase her, and only shook his head. There are other ways to deal with the Erd Tree, but you either can't or won't acknowledge them. We all want to help you, but you're being vain and selfish. Prideful even. She smacked his chest. So are you. I am. He nodded at that, oh so infuriatingly calm. But at least I'm honest about it because I know what I want. Do you? His gaze flitted up and down, searching for something, and upon failing to find it, he shook his head. I don't think so. You call me reckless and sentimental, but those are my best qualities, and I won't give them up. If you actually think I should, then this is where we part ways. His piece said, he shook his head, pivoted, and walked away. No. Too late, Melina realized her mistake. She'd pushed too hard, too far, too fast. Wait, was he really just going to walk away from her like this? After all, was this his goodbye? Come back. She didn't even realize she'd closed the distance until she did, seizing his sleeve. It was a wild, desperate grab, childish even, but she couldn't stop herself. Nor could she stop herself from a, please don't go. Naruto turned his head, a blue eye peeking over his shoulder. Tell me you want then. I want a purpose. The words tumbled out of her, the dam bursting once more for the last time. A place to belong, a reason to be. He turned to face her and she lost her grip on him as he spoke. And you think dying will grant you that purpose? Yes? No? Maybe so. What else will? Her lone eye began to sting, but she just couldn't help herself. My own mother made me for the sole sake of burning. When the tears inevitably came, she scrubbed at her face to hide them. But it was no use. She knew he could see them. What else do I have? This is my purpose, the one I chose, the only way I can help you by removing the last obstacle in your path. He grabbed her hands, cutting her off. You can help me other ways. She gave him a shake. How? By living. He kissed her, not as roughly as she would have liked, but slowly, gently, his lips sealing hers. It made her feel as if she were afire. Need sparked to life within her, and she found her hands fisting in his jacket. It would be so easy to give in, to just trust him and believe in his success as she once had so long ago. She tried to argue, tried to rally, and succeeded until he kissed her again. It happened every time. Whenever she tried to rally, his lips found hers. She wasn't going to win this argument, was she? Bugger. This was a goodbye indeed, not to him, but to her old and oh so very foolish self. All right, she rasped between breaths. All right, you can stop now. I'll listen to you, our plan. The silence was his answer. You don't have one, do you? Naruto scratched the back of his head. You kinda stormed out before any of us could think of one. Melina buried her head in his chest and laughed into his jacket. Oh, beloved, what am I going to do with you? Chapter 27. Why do you hesitate? Everything in this life is a tool, a key to victory. Use it. Open that door. Do not linger in the past. Regret will kill you. Advance. Charge forward. Never look back. Ever onward. Ever upward. Advance. Tilde a reference. Sacrifices must be made. So that's the plan, then? Naruto beamed. It's better than the one we had before. Millicent pinched the bridge of her nose. My lord, do realize we didn't have a plan before this. Precisely. He snapped his fingers and pointed her way across the round table. Which makes this plan infinitely better than the last one, Tilde. Are you going to get him for that, or should I? Melina smiled softly. Allow me. When she leaned over to dig a finger into his whiskered cheek, Naruto endured it with a bemused smile. After all, things were better between them. He'd happily let Melina give him a jab or two and the odd smack on the back, if meant she'd stick around for the foreseeable future. And she was. Life was good. Now he just needed to wrangle the rest of his allies, convince them of his plan, and venture forth. Easier said than done, but Lendel wasn't built in a day or so, they say. So we're going to burn the Erd tree, he said. All in favour. Nearly every hand rose, save one. Great. He steepled his hands and laid his chin atop them. I've already decided how, but I'd like to hear your thoughts. I'm fairly certain a normal flame won't cut it, so if any of you have alternative means. His heart drummed wildly in his chest as he awaited their response. He had done all that he could. Talked and fought and cajoled each of them as best he could. Now he had but to wait. He let his gaze roam over the lot of them. Trish and Grail seemed content, but Theralina looked positively mutinous at the mere mention of fire. He could sense the roiling cauldron of her emotions even from here. She'd already disapproved of their many and myriad ideas before, but now she looked all of an instant from leaping right to her feet and leaving the table altogether. That was a bridge he would have to cross soon, or burn, like the Erd tree itself. Voices rose all at once and not in agreement. He caught some snatches among them. Begging your pardon, my lord, the Volcano Manor might have a means to that foul place. I'll never set foot in Mount Gelmire ever again. Why ever not? It's quite the peaceful place, I've found. Raya, my dear sweet child, you are woefully naive. Can we not just blast the bloody thing apart? Bah! Spoken like a true beast blade. The Forge of the Giants is the only... Do not speak such heresy. It is the only way. Right. They weren't getting anywhere with this. Thankfully, he knew how to put a stop to it this time around. On a whim, he raised a hand and brought it crashing down on the table. That's enough. His voice rang out into the silence that followed, sharp and cutting. I saved you all. You're able to sit here, talking, arguing, espousing your ideals because of me. Yet you can't seem to agree on a single talking point. Hush up and listen already. Rani hid a hum behind one of her many hands. No need to be so rude. Naruto stared her into silence and she quailed beneath his glare. He held her eye until she finally looked away. Only then did he take a deep breath to settle himself. Me, Melina, and Millicent will head to the Forge of the Giants first thing tomorrow morning. Grail and Lanciax will provide air support. He didn't miss their triumphant expressions, nor did he fail to watch those words ripple across his assembled allies like a slow-moving wave. He paused just long enough for them to sink in and barreled on. We think it's best to have a small party to infiltrate before we bring the others, and someone needs to hold the capital while we're away. Rani and I shall remain. Renala demurred, speaking over her daughter's protest. We have no love of the northern lands. They are far too cold for our liking. Suits me just fine. Blade rumbled his agreement. Cold always bothered me anyway. I concur. Raya shivered a little, tail flicking behind her. My blood would surely freeze in such a place. Nephili chewed her lower lip. Someone approached me about Stormvale. We must claim it now that Godric has fallen. Naruto tilted his head, mildly pleased to see her finally shaking herself out of her stupor and taking the initiative. Good for her. She had to step out of Gideon's shadow sooner or later. The man was dead after all, and had been for some time. No point in crying over spilled milk. Not that he'd ever shed a tear for that rat bastard. Go right ahead, he said. I'll see you soon. Her face went red. Kurama whistled in his head. Latenna squirmed in her seat, drawing his eye to her. I would prefer to accompany you. I wish to see the Halig tree, and I have business to attend to in the north besides. Sure enough, the old fox was quick to nudge him yet again. Bring her along. I've got a good feeling about this. Against his better judgment, he shrugged. Fine. I suppose we can squeeze in one more. Anyone else? Theralina found her vice next, as he well knew she would. And what if we disagree with this plan? Melina went still. Millicent tensed at his side, one hand falling to the hilt of her blade. Simple. Trish crossed both arms before her chest. Now that he'd finally restored her voice, she wasn't shy about expressing her opinion. Then we move on without you. The holy maiden glared at the tree sentinel but found no traction in her implacable gaze. Nor did she find sanctuary in any of the others. At length she hung her head. I cannot hope to stand against you. Naruto let out a soft, silently relieved breath of his own. But neither will I support you. Fool of a girl. Grail clicked her tongue in mild admonishment. Where is your god now, child? Far and away. It cares not for thee, the maiden huffed. I will be the judge of that, so you say. Trish's hooded gaze sought his not a moment later. In that case, I shall remain to rally the sentinels and secure the city. If that's all right with you, of course, my lord. It is. He granted her a nod in assent, only to be briefly baffled when a small smile flashed across her lovely face. He was missing something here, wasn't he? Kurama saw right through to the heart of it, as always. She wants to prove herself. I expect she'll have a surprise or two waiting for you upon your return. All right, then. He clapped his hands. We'll make camp in the city. Everyone else is free for the day. Rani made to rise with the rest of them just a little too quickly. Naruto fixed her with a small smile. Not you. She sat back down with a huff. 0.0. Not you. Rani eyed Naruto with due wariness as he approached her chair. This was it. The moment she'd long anticipated. They were alone. He would surely try to seduce her now, as he had the others. But she was no easy catch. I am not some easily wooed wench, good sir. She sat up straighter in her seat as a queen would upon their throne and steepled all four hands in her lap. Keep thy hands to thine self. Confusion flashed across his face. I'm not here for that. What? Rani's mind fizzled out in a shower of sparks. Why wasn't he trying to woo her with his wily ways? Did he think her not good enough? Did he disdain her because of this doll body? The thought should have brought her some small semblance of solace. Instead, riled her up. Oh? I am one of the last living goddesses in this land. Whatever my form may be now, I shall soon ascend to the night sky, reclaim my true form, and gain a power heretofore unknown to all. You would be wise not to underestimate me. Sorry, but that's not happening. His smile stopped her short. I haven't underestimated you from the moment we met. I like you just as you are, you know. She whipped around, face rose red. Confounded silver tongue! Blue eyes shut and opened in a baffled blink. I'm sorry? Are you? He flung up his arms. What did I do? Everything. He know. Calm. Be calm. She mustn't play into his hands. Never mind. 'Tis no fault of yours. She looked away with a huff. What do you wish of me? His smile became a tad sheepish. Well, I was wondering if you still had your great rune on hand. What manner of madness was this nonsense? She jerked back with a scowl, leaned back, eyeing him warily. You want my great rune. You know not what you seek. I kinda do. He pulled out the chair opposite her and flung himself into it, lazily draping a leg over one armrest. A certain someone mentioned it to me. He most notably refused to say whom. Said you threw it away and everything. Rani made angry Rani noises and covered her face with all four of her hands. You know not what you ask. Don't I? No. Her head snapped up to glare at him. I discarded it in the far north long ago. You did? Great. But the boy's enthusiasm truly was dauntless, wasn't it? Perfect, even. That's where I'm headed. She slapped his knee. You do not understand. But how could you? That is a burden I alone bear, and one I had resigned myself to forget. He didn't rise to her bait. He just kept staring at her with those earnest eyes of his. She quivered, and not in an unpleasant way. Very well. I shall tell you its last known location. It is heavily guarded. By what? I do not know. It had been so long now, she wasn't sure if the protections were still in place. Something or someone Itao may have found it by now. but she could still sense it near the halig tree, glimmering faintly in the back of her mind, a distant, foggy beacon she could never truly discard. "Seek it if you dare." A thought occurred to her, and in a rare moment of mercy she prodded him. "But bring that shade of millennia with you and fix her. Hopefully, by some miracle, this boy could use that girl and put her sister out her misery. Or perhaps..." Her cold black heart twitched traitorously in her porcelain chest. Such an unpleasant feeling. All because of him. He'd started this. 'Twas he who first made he wonder in the first place. Enough. She looked away, unable to bear the weight of his gaze. "Get thee gone." His brow furrowed in quiet confusion. "I don't know what you mean." Rani huffed. "You shall soon see for yourself." "Oi, you're not making any sense here. No more." She'd reached her limit. "Enough. To bed with thee." .0.0. Night came quickly to Lendel, and in that inky gloom, the shadows stirred. .0.0. She couldn't let him do this. It was heresy, blasphemy, the foulest of treachery. To allow such sacrilege, there could be no greater sin in the lands between. Do what must be done. Do not hesitate, show no mercy. The voice of the greater will was loud in her head. It demanded action. And so poor, fretful Theralina crept closer to her beloved's bedside, dagger in hand. She didn't want to kill him, really, she didn't. Not when he had done so much for her. But what choice had she? This was the Erd Tree, the very symbol of her faith, the very thing that allowed her to use healing miracles in the first place. And he wanted to burn it down. The very concept horrified her. She had been raised to believe in it since she was but a child. It had been the center of her world for so long, and for him to just decide to be rid of it simply because it was in his way. How could the bittersweet pang of a first love possibly compare to that which she had nurtured and believed in all her life? She knew the answer. It could not, should not, must not. And yet, Naruto looked so peaceful in his sleep, downright innocent as he slumbered in his bed. This was her one and only chance to change things before fate flew free. Must she do this? She had no desire to end his life. She didn't want to, truly. But if she let him be, he would willfully destroy the very foundations of her life. She couldn't abide that. Steeling herself, Theralina raised the dagger over her head. Her eyes burned with tears. No, keep them open. She would see this through to the end. This would be her punishment as much as his. Once he died, she would join him in death. She brought the dagger down with a silent sob. It slammed into Naruto's chest. Clang! The great runes emblazoned in his body sang a song of defiance, and an otherworldly light turned her blade aside. Theralina gasped as her dagger was torn clean out of her grip. The sheer force of the repulsion knocked her down. She fell back to the floor with a gasp and landed heavily on her rear. Dazed, she blinked up at him. Naruto was unharmed, utterly untouched. "Why?" she hissed at his slumbering body. "I can't even murder someone properly." "Do you have any idea how much I had to psych myself up for this?" "Kill him." The voice in her head was so loud. She couldn't even conceive of resistance. Her body betrayed her and staggered up to its feet, grabbed the dagger. She closed her eyes, unable to bear the sight. This time there was no resistance. The blade plunged deep. Naruto didn't wake. The knife fell from her numb fingers. She joined it on the floor, crumpling to her knees. What have I done? A rhetorical question. She already knew the answer. She had tried to kill him. And for what? The greater will did not sing her praises. Her god was silent now. She had served her purpose and been cast aside. She'd done its bidding, and for what? Nothing. The realization appalled her. She was a murderer. A killer. She would take the dagger and end her own life to save herself from such shame. Something struck her from behind. What? Who dared? Why did she feel so cold? Where had all her strength gone? Theralina looked down, utterly baffled, and nearly screamed at what she found there. A blade had burst through her back and tore through her stomach. Aghast, she touched a trembling hand to the wound. It came away red. Wait, she knew this sword. Her eyes went wide and she made to cry out, but someone clamped a hand over mouth and kicked her forward, tearing her off the blade. Theralina fell to her knees, clutching her grievous wound. Red hair lofted before her vision. Her eyes widened. "Millicent! He saved you." Her voice was sharper than the weapon she wielded. "He was willing to give his life for you, and this is how you repay him. With treachery." Theralina looked back to Naruto. He was sitting up, rubbing his chest with one hand. Much to her horror, he tore it free, looking down on her with a sigh. Did you really think that would work? Her tongue failed her. You sleeping? She finally managed. You were asleep. I never was. His words were a scythe, cutting down her certainty like so much wheat from chaff. I knew you were here the moment you entered the room. A sigh left him in a ragged breath. I really wanted to believe you wouldn't do it. A tan hand palmed his face as he shook his head. Reality is often disappointing. Different pasts, different names. In the end, it's all the same. Theralina saw her death in his eyes and balked. It wasn't supposed to be this way. No, wait. I'll leave. I'll never darken your door again. I swear. I'm sorry. Her heart soared when she heard those crouched down before her. I want to trust you, I really do. But after that, I just can't. Millicent yanked her backward with a hiss. Death before dishonor. May you find peace in your next life. Agony slashed across Theralina's throat with blinding speed. An ugly flash of pain turned her world red as everything faded to darkness. Her thoughts blurred together in a mangled, muddy mess. Why was her head on the floor? Oh, her body was still standing, no. Toppling to the ground now like a felled tree. But there was no light. Why? Where had the grace of gold gone? The Golden Order always said there would be light. 0.0. Her lord was wounded, not in body but spirit, pained but what transpired here. Millicent could see it at a glance. He wasn't displeased with her, no. His anger lay with himself. He sat on the bed before her, unblinking as a pair of shadow clones carted Theralina's corpse away. Had he gone into shock? Did he simply not wish to speak? She risked a glance toward the crimson cadaver as it rounded the corner and stifled a sigh in the back of her throat. Betrayal was always painful. Not because of the pain, rather, but because it never came from an enemy. She would not allow doubt to creep in. Not here. Not now. You did what you had to. That's what worries me. Naruto shook his head with a rueful sigh. It was easy letting you kill her. I know I didn't know her as well as I did you, but I should have felt sad when she died. All I felt was disappointment. His right hand clenched into a mournful fist, fingers biting down until she saw blood. What does that make me? A good man. Her metal hand grasped his and eased said fist open. We couldn't trust her going forward, not with her loyalty so compromised. Millicent kissed him then, sweetly, softly, slowly, her mouth moving over his to stifle his concerns. She took hold of his hands and guided them to her hips, then her breasts, now her clothes, silently urging him on, making him forget the horrors that had transpired tonight. She could trust him, she knew. Trust in him absolutely. He would never let her down. She trusted him with her whole heart, her whole being. She was his as he was hers. And if I ever become someone else... Her lips brushed his anew as she made him push her down and let him have her way with him. If I ever cease to be me, I can trust him to kill me. But she dare not say the words aloud. 0.0. I killed someone last night. Fear awaited his words patiently, hands in her lap. With your own 2 hands? No, Naruto admitted ruefully as he sat before her, framed in the rising rays of dawn. But I let it happen. Was it Theralina? He rounded on her. How did you know? You forget. I am a deathbed companion. As she always was, as she always would be. I felt the moment of her passing. Poor girl. She never could figure out which side she was on. One must always know one's truest loyalty from the first, else things got messy. I trust her end was swift? He nodded, yet dithered, looking torn. Poor boy. Please, speak your mind. She patted the empty space beside her on the bed. Your secrets are safe here. With me, Naruto proved quick to sit. I wanted to give her a chance. Hell, I gave her 2. But she wasted them. And at the end she begged, and I let her die. Ah, therein lie the rub. She understood now. We will all give something of ourselves before the end. She shifted her hips and laid her head against his shoulder, soothing him with her presence. Sacrifices must be made, but not all need be lost. She touched a hand to his. I am as adept at granting life as I am death. I don't understand. Here. She took hold of his right hand in hers. Place your palm upon my stomach. Naruto didn't hesitate. He remained bold as ever, even in his confusion. His palm settled upon her stomach, and he realized it was no longer flat. He felt the bump there and jolted immediately. I felt a kick. No, 2, naturally. She said she would be the mother to his children, and so she would be. Her smile was radiant. I promised you a son, but in light of last night's events, I shall grant you a daughter as well. She took his hand and guided it back to her belly. I took her soul at the moment of her passing and drew it into me. Little Theralina shall find peace in rebirth as your daughter, cleansed and free of all pain and memory with her brother. Naruto caught the meaning quickly, bless him. Twins! He tried to protest, or perhaps he simply realized the truth. It hasn't even been... I told you, did I not? Try though she might, fear couldn't help but preen at his awe. I grant life and I grant death. It was a simple matter to use some of my stored vitality, and she had so much of it thanks to him, to speed these little ones on. Worry not, she amended at his worried expression. I'll not birth them yet. It's still much too soon, and I've grown rather fond of them, you see. But before that, if he was to leave, she might not be here when he returned. The thought pained her, made her want more time with him. Her arms encircled his chest. Let me hold you, just for a little while. 0.0. Come the dawn, they set out into the northern lands. The last phase of their journey began, the final act of a story that would see their Erd tree toppled and their hopes ascendant. It would be the dawning of a new age, the beginning of a new era. Naruto prayed everyone would live to see it. Chapter 28. If you wish to save your maiden, then heed the words of I, Shabriri. Tilda. The flame flickers. None challenged them. Naruto confessed some small anxiety at the distinct lack of enemies they faced as they trekked through the snow. There was a chill in the air here, and not just from the foggy frost of the Forbidden Lands. It clung to him despite his best efforts to ignore it, began to seep into his spirit, the very marrow of his bones, poisoning his every thought, not with fear, but doubt. He knew they were nearing the end of their journey, yet it still felt like there was so much he hadn't done that he still needed to do. Even with his shadow clones currently scouring the lands between for any last lost souls to save, he still felt there was so much he'd missed. We'll finish this once and for all. Don't worry. Easy for Kurama to say. As they climbed higher and higher, he couldn't help but notice a marked change in his companions. Melina seemed more lively, all too willing, eager even to take the lead as a guide once more. But by contrast, Millicent became more and more distant, her eyes dim and unfocused as she trailed behind them. He'd tried talking to her, but received little in the way of a response. Either she was lost in her own thoughts, or she was trying to hide something from him. Neither sat well with his weary heart. Latenna took notice as well, but if she cared to remark on it, she didn't say anything. She flicked a glance his way now, mildly amused as he peeled back a branch for her to duck under. He knew she could have ridden on her wolf Lobo and ranged ahead of them, but she seemed to be luxuriating in her legs for once. Good on her. He didn't regret healing her, not for a second. Although, he side-eyed Lobo with a sigh, feeling the wolf's gaze upon him. I don't think he likes me very much. On the contrary, the recovered Albinoric chuckled. He's rather fond of you. How do you know? Her lips twitched in the smallest of smiles. He hasn't tried to eat you yet. Ugh. We haven't had much time to speak of late, have we? Her hand found his, fingers brushing his palm, sending a cool shiver shooting down his arm. I don't believe I ever thanked you properly for what you did that day. He studiously avoided her eyes. There's no need to thank me. Anyone would have helped you? No, her hip bumped against his. Not anyone. Not here. Not in the lands between. Emboldened by her words, he risked a glance her way. Just someone, then. She laughed a little at that. It was a faint musical sound. And to think, I actually thought you little more than a brute at first. A joke? From his stoic archer? Would wonders never cease? Careful, he wagged a blonde brow her way. I might be. You jest. She laughed and drove an elbow into his side. Because of you, I can walk, run, sing and dance. Naruto's brow shot into his hairline. Wanna run that last one by me again? Her pale face flushed a lovely shade of red. Please don't laugh. I'm not, really. He held up his hands when she began to pout. I don't think I've ever danced in the snow before. Then perhaps I could teach you, sometime. There was something in her voice just then, a faint note of longing that made his heart hitch. Would you like that? Would he? He hadn't given much, though, to what he would do once his adventure here ended. Perhaps he ought to start. I would, he decided. What comes next? You rule, naturally. Latenna's shoulder brushed his as they followed Melina up another snowy hill. You will be fine a fine Elden Lord. The lands between could not ask for better. Would he? Everyone kept saying that, but after this adventure he wasn't sure what a true lord was anymore. Idly he considered the great runes etched into his body. Godric. Certainly not. Anyone who grafted like that had no right to be called such. Radahn. Noble. But in the end, he had chosen to die rather than be saved. Renala? She might do, but she didn't seem to want it anymore. Rykard? No. Just no. The world was well rid of that snake. Morgott might have made a good showing, but fell short. Well, he had never met him. Godwyn was gone, and what remained of him in the world wasn't something he wanted to encounter anytime soon. By contrast, Ranni's ideas of lordship, ladyship in her case, eluded him much like her great rune for the time being, but even then he wasn't sure he trusted her with that kind of power. Who did that leave then? The twin prodigies? Miquella? Malenia? He hadn't met either, but would soon enough. Marika had been the one to bring him here to the lands between in the first place, and he'd have to deal with Radagon to get through to her, no doubt. Why did he have the feeling he'd forgotten someone? Latenna touched his cheek, distracting him. Thank you once again for leading me to the home of my people. I look forward to serving you throughout your reign, if you would have me. He was still trying to ponder out the meaning of those words when the Albinoric archer stepped into him, stood on the very tips of her toes and pressed her lips to his. It was a light kiss, all things considered, shy, little more than a feather's brush before she drew away, but it left him reeling all the same. Many years to come. Kurama laughed, but Naruto barely heard him because something clicked in the back of his mind. Wait. What she'd said just now sounded an awful lot like a proposal. If the two of you are quite done. Melina's flat, unamused voice called up ahead, dragging him from his doldrums. We have company. A low grow shook the snow ahead as a beast lumbered out of the fulsome fog. Naruto looked up at it, up and up some more. Oh, one of those black gargoyle. He raised a hand and conjured a Rasen shuriken ready to dispatch it. Melina moved. Her blade flashed out as she leaped past him in a single seamless streak of speed, cloak billowing out behind her from the force of her leap. In that instant, he caught a glimmer of something, a telltale shimmer across her blade, little more. Then she was gone, alighting in a pointed crouch behind the gargoyle. As for the stone beast, well, he lay in pieces. Latenna sputtered in quiet confusion. What in blazes was that? Melina stowed her blade and averted her gaze. You have your secrets and I have mine, Albinoric. Do not begrudge me this. That was more than a secret. The archer stowed her bow but not her tongue. You hold a fragment of destined. Naruto shrugged, unwilling to take up the argument. All right, we'll drop it for now. Latenna sputtered incoherently. My lord? Melina's good eye widened. Pardon? I said okay. Try as he might, he couldn't help but laugh at their flustered expressions. You're obviously in a hurry to reach the mountaintops, right? When she nodded, he offered her his hand. So let's go, Melina. To the end of our journey. Yes. She took his hand in hers, heedless of Latenna's pout. Let us go. Something shimmered in the air behind him. You cannot pass. His hackles rose as he heard the faint chime of a bell. He turned thoughtlessly and found Millicent standing there, swaying where she stood, blade in hand. A faint golden light enshrouded her body, enveloping her from head to toe. And was it just him, or did those golden eyes of hers seem brighter somehow? No, that wasn't it. What was this? A projection? He didn't think so. And yet, Melina swore under her breath, I should have known you would interfere. You cannot reach the halig tree. The pale spectre shrouding Millicent made the girl raise her blade, speaking with another voice. I am Malenia, blade of Miquella, and clonk, I am not in the mood. Naruto finished as he drove a fist into her skull. Buzz off and gimme my bestie back. Millicent, or rather the spectre that had possessed her, crumpled like a house of cards into his arms. He caught her as she crumpled and knelt down, cradling her limp form. Oh, hell. Although, why did it feel like he was forgetting something? Or was it someone? Was he? 0.0. The mimic tear plodded forward. She had been shown mercy, given a task by her lord. Such a bountiful blessing. She would not forget, never forget. She would repay him, no matter the cost. 0.0. Shabriri considered himself a wise man. Despite his lack of eyes, he saw what others could not, did what many would not. He was the embodiment of chaos, the agent of the new order to come, the very concept of change. After all, who else would see the world scoured clean if not him? So, when a tarnished made his way to the mountaintop of the giants, wounded maiden cradled in his arms, he made him an offer. It was a fair offer for the flame. The fool would not know his mistake until it was too late. He would burn, the tree would burn, all of it would burn. Such was the will of the frenzied flame. Let chaos take the world. Ah, a tarnished. If you wish to save your maiden, then heed the words of I, Shabriri. He said the words he had said to Vike once, so long ago, and let him down his dark-destined path. But he did not expect the response that came. Indeed, how could he, when faced with such a strange being? The blonde one considered him for a long moment, staring at him, right through him. I don't even see you. You're nothing. No one. Just a vessel. Shabriri's blood could not run cold, for he was fire incarnate, but it did still all the same. Nice try. The whiskered warrior smiled. But you reek. I don't like you, but I'll be taking your hat. Looks nice. One of the maidens behind him, he knew not their name, drew a bow on him. Foul fiend! Back to the pit from which you came. Never! Let chaos take the war! Shabriri gurgled in surprise as a hand burst out his back. He looked down, alarmed to find the rest of the limb jutting through his impaled body. The arm holding him yanked him closer, and quite suddenly he realized this wasn't a tarnished at all, but something far, far worse. You know, I've been thinking a lot about this, and the thing is, I am chaos. Those crimson cat-like eyes regarded him as though he were naught but an ant. And I will be taking this world. He could see the fire in his eyes, not that of the frenzied flame, but of something infinitely worse, a beast. But I won't burn it to the ground. No, I've got other plans. I aim to take it. You won't be around to see that? The blonde tore his limb free, pitched him forward, and left him to bleed out in the snow. The last Shabriri heard was the sound of boots crunching away in the snow. Come on, Melina. We've got a tree to burn.